Chapter 3882. Once he realized that he actually thought Hua Jin was cute, Gong Jie felt even more awkward. He vented his gloomy anger on Hua Jin. "Why are you staring at me?" Without another word, Gong Jie pressed down on Hua Jin's head again and drowned him in the pool. Gurgle gurgle, everyone heard the sound coming from the corner and was shocked. They all looked over and saw Hua Jin struggling a few times before his body went limp and he fainted in Gong Jie's arms. Yun Shirshir swam over anxiously. "Hua Jin, your assistant? She seems to have fainted." "Hua Jin." Liang Yin shouted anxiously, but she subconsciously called out Hua Jin's name. Fortunately, the scene was chaotic and everyone's attention was focused on Hua Jin, so they did not realize that she had called out his name strangely. Hua Jin had fainted. When Gong Jie fished him out, he thought that he had drowned. The group of people were flustered and did not know what to do. Among them, Mu Yaja and Gong Jie were the only ones who knew how to perform first aid. Mu Yaja did not even think before he handed this difficult task to Gong Jie. Gong Jie did not think too much about it. He thought that Hua Jin had choked on water. He crossed his fingers and pressed on her chest, but there was no movement. Liang Yin bit her finger and watched as Gong Jie pressed his palm on Hua Jin's chest. But that was her body. She was going crazy. "How is it?" Yun Shirshir squatted beside Hua Jin. Seeing that he had no reaction, she said to Gong Jie worriedly, "Be careful. She's a girl and her bones are very fragile. Don't break her ribs." At the side, Liang Yin added, That's right. A girl's bones are very fragile. Be careful not to break her bones. Most importantly, this was her body. She was still useful." Gong Jie looked depressed. "It doesn't look like you're drowning." Yun Shirshir said angrily, "Little Jie, she's just a girl. How could you be so cruel to her? Even if it's a joke, you can't play like this. What if someone dies?" "I know what I'm doing." Just as the group of people were staring at each other in bewilderment, Yu, who was at the side, looked at Hua Jin, who was lying on the ground with a flushed face, and asked suspiciously, "Could it be that he fainted from the heat? Also, I remember that there is an infirmary in the hotel." Yu glanced at Gong Jie and said coldly, "Instead of glaring at him, why don't we send him to the infirmary?" When Hua Jin woke up and opened his eyes, he saw a light hanging above his head. He suddenly realized that he was on a big bed. A familiar voice came from beside him. "You're awake." Hua Jin turned his head in horror and stared at Gong Jie, who was guarding by the bed, in despair. Why was this guy still haunting him? When Gong Jie saw Hua Jin looking at him as if he had seen a ghost, his expression turned even uglier. "If you don't want to wake up, I can let you sleep again." No need." Although Hua Jin was extremely afraid of Gong Jie, the demon king of sadism, on the surface, he was extremely cowardly. "But why am I here?" He sat up with his hand on his head and asked carefully. "The doctor said that you fainted because of a lack of oxygen in your brain and low blood pressure. You're wearing a swimsuit that looks like a diving suit. It's airtight and you fainted from the heat." Chapter 3883. Was there such a thing as heat sickness? Just when Hua Jin was in disbelief, he vaguely felt some changes in his body. Where was his swimsuit? He lifted the blanket and saw that he had been changed into a bathrobe. His expression was even more horrified. This should be something that Liang Yin changed for me? No. Yun Shirshir did not know that he had swapped bodies with Liang Yin. Then, without knowing, she would never allow Liang Yin, who had become Hua Jin, to touch her body. It must be Yun Shirshir who changed it for him. As if he had guessed what Hua Jin was thinking, Gong Jie snorted coldly. "Dream on." "What do you mean?" "I changed it for you." Hua Jin covered his crotch. "Why are you the one who changed it for me? If not, who do you want to change it for you?" The only person who was of the same gender was Yun Shirshir. However, how could Gong Jie allow Yun Shirshir to serve Hua Jin? He had never enjoyed such treatment before. Hence, Gong Jie went against everyone's wishes and dragged Hua Jin back to the room. He took off his swimsuit and put on a bathrobe. Hua Jin thought hopelessly that Liang Yin must be hiding in a corner and crying in despair. Tomorrow he must find him and bare his fangs. What a headache. Hua Jin was still a little wary. You just changed my clothes? Gong Jie narrowed his eyes and looked at him. Other than changing your clothes, you seem to be expecting something else. No. Or do you think that other than changing my clothes, I want to do something else to you? Hua Jin did not dare to say it. In reality, if a man and a woman were to be alone together, it would be hard for a hot-blooded man to not have any evil thoughts when he saw the naked young girl, right? Especially a man like Gong Jie. Speaking of which, he didn't know why, but the words Xiao Yichen had said to him before suddenly floated into his mind. My uncle doesn't like men, right? I don't think he likes women. He doesn't seem to be interested in women. Hua Jin had some doubts. Could it be that this Gong Jie really doesn't like women? With that thought in mind, Hua Jin suddenly asked tentatively, Gong? Gong Jie responded with a hostile look. Young Master Gong, let me ask you something. Hua Jin didn't know how to ask. After weighing his options, he finally asked, do you like women? Do you have that kind of physical reaction to women? Gong Jie's gaze became even more dangerous. Are you questioning my sexual orientation? I'm not questioning your sexual orientation. I'm just discussing with you about this. What I mean is, if you have a reaction to women, why don't I sleep on the floor while you sleep on the bed? We can't possibly sleep in the same bed as a single man and a single woman, can we? What if you pounced on me? However, Hua Jin didn't dare to ask the second half of his sentence. Gong Jie heard this and revealed an extremely evil smile. He suddenly approached him. Hua Jin leaned against the headboard and stared at him nervously. Gong Jie's arms were on both sides of him. Through the slightly open collar of his bathrobe, his well-defined chest and the firm lines of his arms were clearly visible. His entire body was emitting sex-inducing hormones. Chapter 3884. Hua Jin was so stiff that he didn't dare to move an inch. It was as if he was facing a lion that was eyeing him covetously. If he moved, the lion would pounce on him in the next second. Save life? Gong Jie stared at his face and finally spoke. You're afraid that I'll take advantage of you? You're so concerned about my sexual orientation? Gong Jie's thin lips curled up slightly, making him look devilishly charming. Why don't I give it a try? He moved closer to him. Hua Jin almost shrieked out loud. Try what? Try to see if I have any reaction to women. Is there a need to try? Do you like men or women? Don't you know what you're doing? His gaze fell on Hua Jin's tightly clenched lips. Gong Jie smiled, revealing his snow-white teeth like a devil. It's rare for you to become a woman. You should at least experience what it's like to be a woman. Otherwise, you'll be wasting such a rare opportunity, okay? No. I don't want to. I don't want to experience this. Other people might not even have the chance to experience this. No. Believe me, 99% of straight men would never want such an opportunity. Is that so? Gong Jie had just raised his hand when Hua Jin nervously covered his shoulders as if he was facing a formidable enemy. He glared at him coldly and suddenly curled his lips in disdain. The next second, his large palm held onto his head and pushed his body to one side. The next second, Hua Jin was kicked to the ground. He got up from the ground in a daze, looking as if he had been frightened. He lifted his head to look at Gong Jie on the bed, only to see that he had already lifted the blanket and covered himself with it. Before he laid down, Gong Jie glanced at him casually and sneered. Nothing happened. You seem very disappointed. Hua Jin stared at Gong Jie in a daze as he lay down. He didn't dare to make a sound. Was the devil going to sleep? That's great. He was finally liberated. Hua Jin tiptoed to the door. When he turned around, he saw that Gong Jie's back was still as usual, as if he had really fallen asleep. Only then did he let his guard down. He opened the door, walked into the living room, and sat down on the sofa. Hua Jin finally felt a little more relaxed after being in a room away from the great Demon King. Perhaps it was the relaxation after being overly nervous. All the muscles in his body suddenly relaxed. He slumped onto the sofa like water, but he still had lingering fears. This vacation was like a tribulation. When he thought about how he still had 3 days of vacation before he could return to the set, and how he would have to live under the same roof as Gong Jie for the next 3 days, he felt hopeless. God bless him. I hope that in the next 3 days, he will get along with Gong Jie peacefully. Forget it, let's sleep. After a day's journey, coupled with the incident at night, and being hit by Gong Jie, he was exhausted. The heater was on in the room, so he didn't feel cold. Hua Jin casually pulled a blanket and carefully covered his stomach before he fell asleep on the sofa. Chapter 3885. The next day, Xianxia and Wuxia brought the 2 little munchkins to the mountain early to pick tea leaves. The Mid-Mountain Hotel was located on Yuhuan Mountain, and on Yuhuan Mountain, there was a type of tea that grew on volcanic rocks called immortal tea. Legend had it that a long time ago, Lu Dongbin, immortal lady he and the other 8 immortals, after attending the Queen Mother's immortality peach banquet, toured the 4 seas to understand the mortal world. The immortals passed by Yuhuan Mountain and saw soldiers digging stones to build a city, so they said to the immortals, "It's very hard for them to dig stones to build a city, I'll go to the South Sea to borrow some stones to help them." Thus, they ignored the objections of the immortals and went directly to the South Sea to borrow stones. The next day, Dongfang Harbor was white, and a large group of geese left the beach and headed towards Immortal Mountain. Lu Dongbin waved the group of geese away, but found that these geese were all made by immortal lady he with stones to tease him, so he was so angry that he left on a cloud. Immortal lady he looked at the stones and felt bad, so she sprinkled Guanyin Bodhisattva's tea seeds on the stone peak and the mountain. The tea leaves grew with the wind, and not long after, there was volcanic tea on the stone peak. There was a filial son on the mountain. His mother was sick for a long time and couldn't recover, so he looked everywhere for medicine. One day he saw a piece of tea on the mountain, so he picked the tea leaves for his mother to drink, and unexpectedly, she was much better the next day. After that, everyone regarded the tea leaves as immortal tea and drank it regardless of whether they were sick or not. Gradually, the villagers on the mountain developed the habit of drinking tea and became the famous village of longevity. Of course, this story could be fabricated, but the reputation of immortal tea was definitely not undeserved. The environment of the stone peak was unique, and the soil was rich in organic trace elements, among which, the content of sulfur and potassium was relatively high. The unique geographical and geological conditions, the superior ecological environment, and the excellent processing technology gave the volcano tea an outstanding quality. Actually, Xianxia didn't come this time out of sudden interest, but because Wuxia took a fancy to the hot spring resources and a large area of tea trees on the stone peak, so he wanted to invest and develop it into a tourist attraction, focusing on building a resort. This time, they came with the main purpose of inspection. Therefore, early in the morning, a group of people went to pick tea leaves. Liang Yin was especially interested. Although she didn't like drinking tea, she was interested in picking tea leaves. Wuxia also asked Gong Jie, but Gong Jie was wrapped in the quilt and did not say a word. Wuxia was too lazy to call him. When Hua Jin woke up, he found that he didn't know what had happened. He had actually rolled on the ground, and under his body was a furry carpet. He had fallen asleep and didn't even know that he had fallen off the sofa. Feeling that the room was empty, he carefully crept to the door of Wuxia's room, mistaking it for Gong Jie's room. When he opened the door, he saw that the bed was empty. Thinking that Gong Jie was gone, he jumped up in excitement. The great demon king has left. Just as he was cheering, a cold voice came from behind him. Who is the great demon king? Hua Jin froze for a moment and turned around in a daze, only to see Gong Jie with slightly messy hair and a gloomy face. Gong Jie glared at him with an unfriendly face. Hua Jin took half a step back and immediately adapted to the situation, revealing a standard peasant smile. Young master, you're awake? Get lost. Chapter 3886. He could tell that Gong Jie's temper when he woke up was quite scary. However, it didn't matter, he tolerated it. It was already late. Since Gong Jie was already up, he must be planning to go out, right? Then he could enjoy a rare moment of peace and quiet. There was a huge sunroom in the suite. There was a circular jacuzzi in the sunroom, surrounded by privacy glass. One could see the scenery outside but not inside from the outside. When Gong Jie left, he could lie leisurely in the bathtub, sipping champagne while looking at the beautiful scenery of the mountains. It was simply great bliss. This was more like a vacation. Hua Jin could already imagine the different kind of bliss lying in the bathtub. However, his beautiful dream was shattered very quickly. Gong Jie made a call in the bathroom and found out that Mu Yaja and Yun Shishir had gone to the mountains to pick tea leaves. Hence, he decided to rest in the room. Then, he walked straight to the sunroom and lay down in the bathtub. He poured a glass of Italian champagne that Hua Jin had been coveting for a long time. Holding the wine glass, he stretched out in the bathtub and enjoyed life. Hua Jin looked on eagerly from the side. His surf bathtub, his premium Italian champagne. How could life be so unpredictable? Hua Jin lay on the sofa resentfully. Gong Jie's icy voice sounded again. Come here. He seemed to be summoning him. Hua Jin sat up from the sofa reluctantly. He looked at him a little gloomily and asked foolishly, What? Give me a shoulder massage. A shoulder massage? Yeah, my neck is sore. The needle here was soft. Gong Jie was used to hard needles, so when he changed to a softer needle, his neck felt like it was going to collapse. Hua Jin said reluctantly, Don't we have a massage technician? I'll give you a call and ask for service. Gong Jie snorted coldly. Hua Jin stood up immediately and walked behind him. He squatted down and swallowed his anger. I'll give you a massage. He pinched the back of Gong Jie's neck with both hands and gently massaged it. However, he was cursing in his heart. Didn't this guy want to enslave him? But he tolerated it. Ostracized. It must be ostracized. This guy must be jealous of his close relationship with Yun Shishir, so he targeted him. Too gentle. When Hua Jin heard this, he increased the strength of his grip. Gong Jie asked, Is it because your hands are as soft as a woman's now that you're a woman? Hua Jin pinched him. However, to Gong Jie, such strength was neither too light nor too heavy. It was neither painful nor itchy. From Hua Jin's point of view, Gong Jie was leaning against the side of the pool. His naked upper body accentuated his well-defined muscles and protruding chest, which made him look even more sexy. For a moment, Hua Jin couldn't take his eyes off him. He was envious. How did he train his muscles? He used to have the habit of going to the gym. However, no matter how much he trained, he couldn't train his muscles to be as exquisite as Gong Jie's. Hua Jin asked curiously, How did you train your muscles? What? Do you go to the gym? I don't have the habit of going to the gym. Then how did you get your muscles? Why do you want them? Hua Jin naturally felt envious. Chapter 3887. Hua Jin didn't say anything, but he felt envious. Hence, he kept staring at him. However, he suddenly realized that Gong Jie's deep gaze had landed on his side profile. He snorted and asked, What are you doing? Have you seen enough? I see that you've been staring at me. Gong Jie asked again, How long are you going to stare at me? Hua Jin turned his face away awkwardly, stood up and walked to one side. He said unhappily, Do you think I want to look? Even if you don't want to look, you've been staring at me for a long time. As he said that, Gong Jie stood up from the bathtub and wiped his body with a towel. Then, he put on a bathrobe and stepped out of the bathtub. Fine water droplets slid down his skin bit by bit. Gong Jie walked in front of him and looked at him fixedly. Hua Jin didn't know where to look and just stared at him blankly. Why are you staring at me? Gong Jie said this out of the blue. I realize that you're quite pretty. Boom. This sentence made Hua Jin's entire body stiffen. So much so that all the blood in his body flowed to the top of his head and his face was so red that it looked like blood was going to come out. Gong Jie saw that his face was even redder and for a moment, he felt that it was more interesting. Standing in front of him was Liang Yin. Even though he knew that although it was a woman's body, the essence was still Hua Jin. However, he didn't know why, but he didn't feel that it was out of place at all. You've blended in well with this body. When Hua Jin heard this, he was stunned. What do you mean? After you've turned into a woman, you're really like that. As Gong Jie said this, he suddenly chuckled and walked closer to him. What's the experience of being a woman? Hua Jin looked awkward as he retreated, trying to avoid him. Gong Jie stretched out his arms and trapped him between his arms, blocking his escape route. Hua Jin shrunk his shoulders in vigilance, looking extremely vigilant. Gong Jie, is it fun to tease me? Tease? Gong Jie frowned and recalled, I remember someone seriously questioning my sexual orientation yesterday. Why don't I take this opportunity to prove to you what my sexual orientation is? Hua Jin was furious. Gong Jie, don't make such a joke. Before he could finish his words, Gong Jie suddenly grabbed his collar and pressed him down on the sofa. Before Hua Jin could accept the fact that he had been pushed down by a man, he heard his fragrant voice. I'm serious. Hua Jin's brain instantly crashed. He subconsciously clenched his fist and swung it at his face. However, with his current body, how could he be a match for Gong Jie? The latter raised his hand and easily caught his fist without any effort. He immediately tied his hands behind his back and subdued him. Hua Jin couldn't move anymore. In the next second, a warm sensation pressed down and covered his lips. However, it was only for a moment. After a brief touch, it immediately separated. When he came back to his senses, Gong Jie had actually kissed him. Hua Jin's eyes widened as if they were about to pop out. Chapter 3888. Ha! He laughed out loud. Hua Jin's reaction was too amusing. He couldn't help but laugh. He had intended to tease him. After all, this guy had questioned his sexual orientation yesterday. Then he had to prove that he liked women and was a normal man. However, he didn't expect his reaction to be so cute. Previously, when they were playing games and receiving punishment, he had also kissed him indirectly. However, it was a little awkward facing a man's face at that time. Now that Hua Jin had become a woman, however, this sense of repulsion vanished in an instant. Gong Jie. Hua Jin was so angry that he gritted his teeth and asked, Is it fun? Is it fun to bully people like this? Yeah, it doesn't feel bad. You. This lawless devil incarnate. Hua Jin pushed him away violently. He raised his hand and rubbed his mouth with the back of his hand. His mouth was very tender, like a flower petal. After he rubbed it, it turned red and swollen, as if it had been spicy. When Gong Jie saw this, he couldn't help but laugh again. However, because of this laugh, Hua Jin couldn't help but be stunned. It was rare for him to see Gong Jie laugh like this. He had to admit that when he laughed, he looked very good. He had a heroic spirit. Although he and Xianxia were twins, their facial features were very similar. However, his features were more heroic and devilish. It was a beauty that was between the sexes. He was very beautiful. When he laughed, there was a faint dimple at the corner of his lips. This dimple was too small. It wasn't easy to notice when he didn't smile normally. However, when he laughed, he couldn't hide it at all. If Gong Jie laughed like this often, it wouldn't be bad. If he didn't know this man well, he would definitely think that this smile was very sunny and warm. However, those who knew his character would shudder because of this smile. They always felt that when he smiled, even if he looked at the sun, there was always a hint of evil and sinister intent. Seeing him smile like this made his hair stand on end. Hua Jin turned his head awkwardly, stood up, walked to the door and muttered, "Pervert!" With that, he opened the door and walked out, slamming the door behind him. Gong Jie did not know where he got the courage to use these two words on him. However, he was tactful enough to run away as soon as he finished speaking. Gong Jie was too lazy to care about him. He lay down on the sofa, picked up the remote control on the coffee table, turned on the TV and watched it. Outside the door, Hua Jin left the room, not knowing where to go. The hotel had a lobby and a tea pavilion that looked like a garden in the sky. He might as well sit there and pass the time. When Xianxia came back, he would look at the specific arrangements. Thus, he sat down and ordered a cup of tea. However, his guilty conscience did not calm down for a long time. Thinking back to that Gong Jie kiss just now, he felt uncomfortable in his heart. He felt that, as a man, he was actually being teased by another man. This feeling was not good at all. Xianxia came back after picking the tea leaves. When she passed by the tea pavilion, she saw Hua Jin sitting in the tea pavilion, holding his chin with both hands as he stared at the mountain scenery in a daze. Chapter 3889. She walked over and patted him lightly on the shoulder. Liang Yin. Hua Jin was in a daze. When he looked up and saw Xianxia, he smiled. Xianxia. Why are you sitting here alone? I didn't see you get up to pick tea with us in the morning. Oh, I was still sleeping in the morning. I didn't know that you went to pick tea. I see. Xianxia smiled. We bought tea cakes. Tea cakes? Yeah. Xianxia took out a tea cake from the box, broke off a small piece, and handed it to Hua Jin. Hua Jin looked at the tea cake in his hand and asked curiously, "What is this?" Before Xianxia could speak, Yu explained kindly, "This is a tea cake. Of course, it's edible." Yeah, really? Smell it. It smells good. I ate 2 tea cakes. When I bite into them, it's crispy and fragrant. But it's quite delicious. Yeah. Hua Jin immediately took a bite. In an instant, the fragrance of the tea filled his mouth. It was crispy and fragrant. When he bit into it, the tea leaves that had been dry and brittle immediately broke apart. The tea leaves and tea stems emitted a mesmerizing fragrance in his mouth. However, it was not easy to chew and was difficult to swallow. When Xianxia saw this, he couldn't help but cover his mouth and burst out laughing. When he saw him laugh, Hua Jin was even more confused. "What are you laughing at?" he asked with a lisp as he chewed on the tea cake crumbs. Ha! Xianxia couldn't help but laugh as well. Yu, who was beside them, revealed a sinister smile. This smile was exactly the same as Gong Jie's. There was an inexplicable evil aura. Hua Jin was so frightened that he quickly spat out the tea cake crumbs. He asked fearfully, "Is it poisonous?" "No, it's not." Xianxia held back her laughter and said, "This tea cake is not for eating. Yu is lying to you." Xianxia held back his laughter until he was about to cry. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This tea cake is actually for making tea. Liang Yin stood at the side and asked quietly, "Don't you know that tea cakes are meant to be eaten? They're used to make tea." The corner of Hua Jin's lips twitched. He casually picked up the glass of water beside him and took a big gulp before spitting out the remaining dregs. A bitter taste instantly filled his mouth. He chewed the tea leaves were not only fragrant, but there was also an inexplicable bitterness. Fortunately, although the tea leaves and stems had been crushed into pancakes, they were still difficult to swallow, so he didn't swallow much. Why was this family so black-bellied? Whether it was Gong Jie, Wuxia, or Yu, other than Xianxia and Xianxia, the other 3 were the epitome of being two-faced. Even though Xianxia was sometimes naughty, compared to Yu, he was a little angel who was kind, and beautiful. Liang Yin took out something wrapped in paper from her bag. Hua Jin didn't know what it was, but he took it from her and opened it. It was persimmon. "This is persimmon. It's definitely edible." Hua Jin took it skeptically. He didn't know why, but even though he knew that it was persimmon, he still felt skeptical. He took a bite and only swallowed it when he was sure that it was a persimmon. He hadn't eaten much since he woke up, so Hua Jin ate a few pieces of persimmon in one go. Liang Yin couldn't help but whisper, "Can't you eat less? What if you gain weight?" Chapter 3890. I don't know. I didn't have a big appetite in the past, so I didn't eat much. Hua Jin chuckled and replied in a low voice, "You'll gain 3 pounds with every bite. You'll become a big fat boy by then." Xianxia said to Wuxia, "I'm a little tired. I want to go back to my room first. Lisa is still waiting for me there." "Right. Why don't we?" Hua Jin suddenly raised his hand and suggested, "Why don't I sleep in the same room as Lisa tonight?" Liang Yin asked curiously, "You want to change rooms?" Hua Jin continued, "If it doesn't work out, Lisa and Liang, Hua Jin and I will share a room. Sure, you and Chairman Mu will share a room. Yu, Xianxia and Gong Jie will share a room. Isn't this a reasonable arrangement?" Xianxia furrowed her brows and was a little conflicted. "Lisa only wants to share a room with me, then," Hua Jin continued, "Chairman Mu, it's good for you to share a room with Xianxia. My room isn't a suite. There's only one bed. What about Xianxia and Yu? We do have 2 beds, but Yu wants 1 bed each. but it'll be a little cramped if Daddy and I sleep together. Yu and Xiao Yichen's room was a standard children's room. The beds were two-tiered bunk beds. If Mu Yaja slept there, she didn't know where to place her long legs that could break through the sky. Liang Yin and Xiao Yichen squeezed into the bottom bunk. Hua Jin was even more speechless. He was conflicted. He didn't want to share a room with Gong Jia. Although it was not the same bed, it was still uncomfortable to sleep on the sofa. However, he wanted to stay as far away as possible from that devil, Gong Jia. Mu Yaja asked, "What's wrong? Are you uncomfortable sleeping on the sofa?" Yun Shirshir raised her eyebrows strangely. "Hey, were you the one who slept on the sofa last night?" Hua Jin nodded his head in grievance, almost wiping away his tears. "Gong Jia bullied me. Didn't he say that he would let you sleep on his bed?" Yun Shirshir said righteously, "Wait here. I'll go talk to him." No need. Hua Jin quickly stopped her. If Gong Jia knew that he and Yun Shirshir had secretly complained, he didn't know how he would punish him. "I've thought about it. Actually, sleeping on the sofa is pretty good. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Anyway, the sofa is very big. I don't feel bad sleeping on it. It's pretty good." Although he was smiling on the surface, he was actually more depressed than eating Chinese gold thread. However, there was no other way. Hua Jin held the teacup in grievance and took a sip. Thinking about how he still had 3 days to face Gong Jia, he felt a headache coming on. In the evening, after dinner, the group of people went to the park to play. However, due to Gong Jia's verbal threats, Hua Jin didn't dare to go. He stayed in the hotel alone and took a hot bath. After soaking for a while, he changed into a bathrobe and lay on the sofa lazily to watch TV. Without Gong Jia around, it felt quite peaceful. At least, he could enjoy such a peaceful moment alone. He also felt very comfortable. As it was a luxury suite, the hotel sent a candlelit dinner, fresh fruits, and delicious desserts. He leisurely enjoyed the dinner alone and lay down on the sofa with the blanket covering him. As he ate desserts and watched TV, he actually felt a little sleepy. Chapter 3891. When Gong Jia and Mu Yaja returned to the room, Hua Jin had already fallen asleep on the sofa. Gong Jia walked over and saw that Hua Jin was sleeping very quietly. He didn't know what possessed him, but he stood by the sofa and stared at him for a while. When he realized that he had been staring at him for a long time, he furrowed his eyebrows and frowned unhappily. He didn't know if it was out of anger or something else, but he kicked Hua Jin mercilessly. This kick landed directly on someone's buttocks. Someone quivered and sat up on the sofa in shock. He screamed, "Fire!" Gong Jia's face darkened instantly. Fire? What military intelligence did he lie about? When Hua Jin finally snapped out of his trance and realized that he was dreaming, he raised his head and saw Gong Jia's impatient expression. He did not know how he woke up, but he vaguely felt a pain in his buttocks, as if they were cramping. What happened? He mumbled and rubbed his buttocks gently. When he looked at Gong Jia, he immediately sat up straight. "You are back." He didn't know why, but at first glance, he actually looked like a wife who was waiting for her husband to return. This knowledge made him even more displeased. Gong Jia snorted coldly. "Fire? Where's the fire?" Hua Jin licked his lips and laughed. "You must be dreaming. It should be sleep talking." In fact, when he woke up, he couldn't remember what he was dreaming about. He only felt that he seemed to have jumped down from a very high rooftop and was kicked down by someone. The building behind him was on fire. He was so frightened that he woke up screaming. In the end, he realized that it was a dream. Hua Jin didn't know that he was kicked awake by Gong Jia. Gong Jia glanced at him and his tone was very dangerous. "Did you complain to my sister?" Hua Jin felt guilty for a moment and immediately said, No. Gong Jia expressed his doubts. "Then why else would she lecture me today, telling you to sleep on the sofa?" Yun Shirshir accused him of not being a gentleman. He actually let a girl lie on the sofa. It was too much. "I didn't say anything." The more Hua Jin spoke, the softer his voice became. It was obvious that he was feeling guilty. Gong Jia asked coldly, "If you didn't say it, then who did?" The two of them looked back at Mu Yaja tacitly. Wuxia casually poured himself a glass of milk. He noticed the two pairs of strange gazes behind him, but he could not be bothered with them. Like an old cadre, he shuffled back to his room in his slippers. Hua Jin shrank back a little. It's okay. I don't think you're ungentlemanly. When people feel guilty, they act like you. Gong Jie said with a deep smile. It's okay, you can sleep on the bed today. Hua Jin was puzzled. Since when did Gong Jie become so reasonable? He felt that it was not normal for him to be so kind. He didn't seem to be so considerate. Hua Jin asked, if I'm sleeping on the bed, where are you sleeping? I'll sleep beside you. Hua Jin was glad that he didn't drink any water. Otherwise, he would have spat it out or choked on it. No need. Chapter 3892. You like to sleep on the sofa so much? Yeah. Hua Jin nodded vigorously. I love the sofa. Gong Jie was speechless. He looked at him carefully and suddenly asked, Why? Why are you so afraid? Gong Jie snorted coldly. Don't worry, I'm not interested in you. Just don't sneak up on me. Who would sneak up on you? Hua Jin said again, I don't like to sleep with men. Gong Jie said coldly, Don't tell me you like men. Hua Jin should be glad that he didn't drink water. Otherwise, he would have choked to death from the shock. Who likes men? You. Gong Jie said, I think you look very gay. Also, I heard a lot of rumors saying that you like men and not women. Who said that? Entertainment magazines. I couldn't tell, Hua Jin said mockingly. Young Master Gong, you're so busy every day. How could you be so bored as to buy entertainment magazines to read? On the plane. Gong Jie said, Since you don't like men, why are you so guilty? Hua Jin snorted coldly to express his disdain. Even if I like men, I'll never like someone like you. Oh, what kind of person am I? Domineering, perverted? Hua Jin was about to say the word pervert when he saw Gong Jie's face. He was so frightened that he swallowed his words. Gong Jie looked at him coldly. His thin lips suddenly curled up. He suddenly bent down slightly and gently approached Hua Jin. Seeing that he suddenly leaned over, Hua Jin quickly leaned back, wishing that he could keep a distance from him. However, he was getting closer and closer, so much so that the warm breath from his lips blew onto the tip of his nose. His breath seemed to have a special kind of high temperature, which instantly made his face red. Hua Jin's face was burning hot, but he didn't know it. Gong Jie saw that his face was strangely red, and felt that it was interesting. Why is your face so red? Could it be that she's shy? Why are you so close to me? I realize that I don't hate you that much anymore. At least now that you're a woman, I don't hate you at all. As Gong Jie spoke, he unscrupulously admired Hua Jin's burning face. He straightened up and said, it seems that you really like men. Who said that? Hua Jin couldn't wait to prove it to him. He suddenly stood up, picked up the quilt on the sofa, and angrily walked into the room. If I want to sleep on the bed, I'll sleep on the bed. Since someone is inviting me to sleep on the bed, is there a reason for me not to sleep? Gong Jie calmly turned around and watched him enter the room. He raised his eyebrows slightly but didn't say anything. Instead, he walked directly into the bathroom. Hua Jin carried the quilt into the room and lay on the bed. He wrapped his body tightly with the quilt. After a while, he heard the sound of water splashing from the bathroom. It was obvious that Gong Jie was taking a shower. He felt that something was wrong with this situation. It was just like when a couple was in a hotel. Damn it, why did he think in this direction? Moreover, why was he wrapped so tightly? It was as if he was guarding against something. Wasn't it normal for two men to sleep on the same bed? Chapter 3893. He looked like a shy little wife who was waiting for her new husband. How could one not misunderstand? He was obviously a man. Although his body was that of a woman, Gong Jie was a straight man who was as straight as steel. He would not do anything to him, right? Of course, he had the body of a devil, but he felt that he was a very principled guy. He would not do such a thing, Hua Jin comforted himself as he carefully lifted the blanket. But he really wanted to take off his bra and sleep. It would be quite uncomfortable to sleep wearing this thing. But if he did not wear it, it would inevitably be a little exposed, right? But if he wore it, it would be very uncomfortable. One night, when he did not take it off to sleep, he dreamed that he was kidnapped. He was tied to a chair and could not move. He felt like he was suffocating. Forget it. He did not believe that Gong Jie would do anything to him. Hua Jin comforted himself as he stood up and got out of bed. He casually lifted half of the bathrobe and reached in with one hand to take off the bra. The bra was taken off from the side, so it was more convenient. However, while he was still struggling with the buttons, the bathroom door opened. Hua Jin was shocked and turned around immediately. He saw Gong Jie standing at the door, wiping his wet hair. However, when his gaze fell on the person who was taking off the bra, his gaze froze. Gong Jie was also stunned. He originally thought that Hua Jin was lying on the bed, probably covering himself tightly as if he was guarding against a thief. He did not expect that he was actually taking off. Gong Jie raised his eyebrows. He, on the other hand, was a little wary. Could it be that this guy really liked men? So, from the beginning to the end, he was playing hard to get? With this thought, Gong Jie could not help but reevaluate a certain someone. She recalled the time when they used to play punishment games. Whenever they were separated by a piece of tissue, Hua Jin's face would turn red as if he was shy. A normal man would be annoyed by that. Why would he show such a shy expression? Could it be? Gong Jie narrowed his eyes in horror at the thought. Are you that impatient? When Hua Jin heard this, he immediately pulled his clothes together and looked at him warily. Why didn't you say anything when you came out? Also, what do you mean by, can't wait? Since you're not impatient, why are you taking off your clothes? Hua Jin felt that he was at a loss for words. What? Did I see through you? Gong Jie snorted, disgusting. You're the disgusting one. Hua Jin was completely enraged. I like women. Do you think I'm like you, someone who doesn't like men or women? Gong Jie gracefully sat down on the bed, tilted his head and looked at him, but let out a disdainful sneer. Not just any woman can catch my eye. If being picky was a sin, then he would rather commit an unforgivable sin than find a woman casually. Hearing his disdainful tone, Hua Jin suddenly laughed mischievously. Don't tell me that young Master Gong is still a little chunky? You seem to care a lot about whether I'm a chunky or not. Gong Jie's words were always able to force Hua Jin into a dead end. Hua Jin did not want to bother with him anymore. He walked to the bed and made a dividing line in the middle with a blanket, dividing the bed into two. Chapter 3894. What's this? Demarcation line. Hua Jin said confidently. We'll sleep on opposite sides. No one can cross the line. It was like a primary school student drawing a line to demarcate their territory. After Hua Jin finished speaking, he did not look at Gong Jie. He wrapped himself in the quilt like a dumpling and lay down. Gong Jie looked at him silently and lay down as well. He looked at his phone for a while. During the vacation, he had been receiving emails through his phone. For a long time, he had been in charge of the Hurricane Group's affairs. Ever since Yu returned to the Mu family, Gong Xiaoying was nowhere to be found. He was not at the headquarters, nor was he at the Gong family. He did not mention to anyone where he went. He only sent him occasional emails to remind him of some things. Regarding Xianxia and Yu, neither father nor son broke the silence first. Gong Jie did not know how to bring it up. He had mixed feelings. Gong Xiaoying obviously wanted to avoid it. When he learned that Yu and Lisa had returned to the Mu family safely, he did not ask anymore. Obviously, he was avoiding it. Xianxia and Gong Jie had mentioned that they wanted to negotiate seriously with Gong Xiaoying. Rather than a negotiation, it was more like a complete breakdown of their father-daughter relationship. They wanted to cut off their relationship cleanly. Gong Xiaoying also knew that Xianxia wanted to cut off their father-daughter relationship. It was as if she was running away. After that, she disappeared without a trace. If it were not for the occasional emails, Gong Jie would have been worried that Gong Xiaoying had met with an accident. Gong Xiaoying was not around, so Gong Jie had the final say in the Gong family's affairs. The matter about the Wurt region was temporarily put on hold. The Davai plan was also put on hold for a long time because of Yu. However, Gong Jie was not in a hurry to start the plan again. He enjoyed such peaceful days. In the past, he was busy with business and expanding the territory of the Hurricane Group. Now, perhaps Xianxia had given him the warmth of a family, so he could not bear to break it. Therefore, whenever he was free, he would go back to the country. Xianxia even laughed at him for not doing his job. Recently, the Hurricane Group was not peaceful. No one knew where Gong Xiaoying went. Some of the relatives thought that Gong Xiaoying had met with an accident, but the Gong family had been hiding it. Therefore, they guessed that Gong Jia wanted to take power, so they deliberately hid Gong's whereabouts and the situation. Gong Jia, however, was dismissive. Of course, it wasn't that he wasn't ambitious. He had thought about the Gong family before. He wanted to obtain the highest authority in the Gong family, but he didn't want to use such despicable methods. In terms of ability and means, he would not lose to anyone. There were no emails in his mailbox. Gong Jia felt sleepy and put down his phone. Just as he was about to turn off the lights, he heard a light snoring sound from under the blanket beside him. He turned his head and looked at the bulging blanket. He could vaguely see Hua Jin's curled-up sleeping figure. The heater was on in the room. He was still wrapped in the blanket, but he did not feel stuffy. Gong Jia lifted the blanket curiously and saw Hua Jin's sleeping face. Chapter 3895. Gong Jia couldn't help but reach out his hand, trying to tuck Tang Yu's hair behind his ear. But when his fingertips touched Tang Yu's cheek, he immediately retracted his hand as if he had been electrocuted. The next day, when Hua Jin woke up in a daze, he felt a chill on his body. He looked up and found that his quilt had slipped to the ground. But fortunately, the bathrobe was still there. Hua Jin sat up. He didn't know how the quilt fell to the ground. Maybe it was because it was too hot, so he kicked the quilt to the ground in the middle of the night. He turned around and saw that Gong Jia was still asleep. But when he faced him, Hua Jin could easily see Gong Jia's thick eyelashes. Dense and dark. No wonder he gave off a particularly evil feeling. With such dense eyelashes, at a glance, it looked like he was wearing heavy eyeliner. Tang Yu unconsciously stared at him for a long time. It wasn't until his phone suddenly rang that he reacted. He felt a little guilty and flustered, as if he had done something he shouldn't have. When he braced himself and picked up the phone, Qin Zhou's cold voice came through. "Are you still on vacation?" "But I'm still here. In 3 days I'll return to the set. We're preparing to release a statement to fight back." Hua Jin was quite excited when he heard this. "Have you got all the evidence on Tang Yu?" "Almost. Now Tang Yu has the upper hand." "Upper hand?" "Yes. But you should know that the higher you stand, the more painful it is to fall." "Understood." After hanging up the phone, Hua Jin walked to the balcony, sat up on the deck chair, and began to read the news. In the past few days, the team behind Tang Yu had been hyping up on the internet. They bombarded Hua Jin on the internet, listing the 5 deadly sins of Hua Jin. 1. Messy personal life. They didn't know where they dug up old news about Hua Jin and Lin Shua. They even found news about Hua Jin being a kept man. Other than his ambiguous relationship with his fans while filming, they also pointed to the female fan's suicide incident. They twisted the truth and said that this fan was Hua Jin's secret lover and that she was pregnant with Hua Jin's child. If it weren't for Hua Jin's assistant driving her away coldly, the female fan wouldn't have jumped off the building in despair. 2. The production crew is acting like a big shot. In the past, when Hua Jin was in the crew, it was common for him to act like a big shot. He even bullied the crew members. 3. Bully newbies. Tang Yu's team spread rumors. When Tang Yu was in the crew, Hua Jin often used his identity as the male lead to humiliate Tang Yu. He didn't put Tang Yu, his agent, and his assistant in his eyes. He even slapped Tang Yu in front of his assistant. Tang Yu's assistant even complained on Weibo that Hua Jin was too much and slapped Tang Yu 3 times in front of his assistant. 4. Hua Jin's acting skills are bad. Tang Yu's team touted Tang Yu's acting skills while criticizing Hua Jin's. They even accused him of being the most popular costume actor in the entertainment industry for not honing his acting skills by relying on his delicate and pretty face to earn the highest salary in the production team despite his lousy acting skills. 5. The quality of his fans is bad. Hua Jin's fans impeached Tang Yu on the internet, accusing him of using Hua Jin's fame to create hype. They even insulted Tang Yu on Weibo. Chapter 3896. During this time, Hua Jin didn't look at the news on the internet. Because Qin Zhou told him not to look, Hua Jin didn't look at it to avoid messing up his mood. As a result, Hua Jin almost exploded when he saw it. What was this? Was Tang Yu looking for death? How dare he do this to him? Endure, he endured. When he returned to Beijing, he would confront Tang Yu. On the bed, Gong Jie opened his eyes. He had woken up. He turned around and glanced at Hua Jin's angry back on the balcony. He furrowed his brows, turned over and went back to sleep. 2 days later, Hua Jin and Liang Yin returned to the set early. Qin Zhou was already waiting for them at the set and explained everything to them. At first, Liang Yin found it hard to accept. She didn't expect Tang Yu to be so excessive. He indiscriminately pushed the blame to Hua Jin and even smeared Hua Jin's reputation. Qin Zhou sneered. If Tang Yu could face his mistakes and admit that he was the one who caused this, it wouldn't be a big deal. But look at his behavior. He actually dared to go against Huan Yu. He's looking for death. Hua Jin also said hatefully, this Tang Yu he just debuted not long ago. How can he be so ruthless? Do you know who's behind Tang Yu? Who? Huan Yu's rival, Sinhai Entertainment. Sinhai. 10 years ago, Sinhai Entertainment mainly focused on the music industry. They signed many singers. Many singers and groups that were popular all over Asia were artists under Sinhai Entertainment. However, they hadn't sung for a long time. The music industry ushered in the impact of the digital era. The market was in a slump and the music sales plummeted. And in the era of pan-entertainment, singing alone couldn't attract much popularity. Even the popular idol singer was a triple agent. He acted in movies, TV dramas, and sang the theme songs of movies and TV dramas. That was the only way to stabilize his fans and popularity. As for professional singers, if they didn't have powerful resources, they wouldn't be able to establish themselves in the entertainment industry. As a result, Sinhai made a strategic change and shifted his focus from the record company to the film industry. He invested in several films and dramas, but in the face of Huan Yu's suppression and domination, he was powerless to compete with Huan Yu. Huan Yu began to build up Hua Jin. Under Qin Zhou's suggestion, they supported Hua Jin. Therefore, Sinhai also signed a group of fresh meat, including the newly signed Tang Yu. Tang Yu's appearance was the best among Sinhai's new recruits. Therefore, Sinhai put a lot of effort into promoting him. However, since she had stepped into the entertainment industry, she naturally could not escape the unspoken rules if she wanted to climb up the social ladder. No matter how good one's aptitude was, if there were no resources, then the unspoken rules would be unavoidable. Qin Zhou had already gotten hold of a batch of Tang Yu's black material. He was just waiting for the critical moment to release it. The PR team had already concocted a batch of press releases, waiting for Tang Yu's team to get carried away. Qin Zhou and Hua Jin communicated for a long time and taught Liang Yin how to cooperate. The next day, the show officially started. Chapter 3897. On the same day, Hua Jin saw the news from Huan Yu's media account. Only then did he know that Qin Zhou had instructed several reporters to take a few photos of Tang Yu and his fans entering and leaving the hotel room together. And they didn't leave the hotel for 2 nights. Although it was secretly taken, the photos were very clear. With clear facial features, it was easy to recognize that the man in the photo was Tang Yu himself. In the photo, 2 people were circled in red. After zooming in, even if the pixels were limited, the other girl was actually the girl who jumped off the building that day. Previously, because Sinhai exposed that the girl and Hua Jin had an affair, the child in her belly was Hua Jin's child. So, unscrupulous media sneaked into the morgue and secretly took photos of the girl's face. Although it didn't take long for the internet police to withdraw the photos had already spread widely on the internet. Some netizens even found the girl's photos through human search. Therefore, through this photo, the public recognized at a glance that the girl who entered and left the hotel with Tang Yu was the girl who jumped off the building that day. Everyone believed that the girl and Hua Jin had a relationship. But in the end, the thief cried thief. The real person who slept with the fans was actually Tang Yu. Before that, Tang Yu's team had righteously accused Hua Jin of having a messy private life with several girls. Many of Tang Yu's fans were eager to protect their master and went after Hua Jin fiercely. Many of Hua Jin's fans also lost their will and defected to Tang Yu's side. Together with Tang Yu's fans, they discredited Hua Jin. Perhaps because of the depth of love, many of Hua Jin's fans couldn't believe it. At first, they still defended their idol on the internet. But as time passed, Hua Jin didn't show up to express his position from beginning to end, nor did he refute the rumors. The public took it for granted that Hua Jin was too guilty and didn't dare to admit it. Therefore, he wanted to deal with it coldly. The fans were suffering as they waited. Many of them stopped being fans, thinking that they loved the wrong idol. However, there were still a large number of fans who firmly believed that Hua Jin did not do such an immoral thing. Now, Huan Yu had publicly clarified that the previous period of silence was because they were secretly gathering evidence. When the evidence was conclusive, they would announce it all together. Who knew how many haters would be slapped in the face? This was also one of Qin Zhou's strategies. Through this matter, he could stabilize his fan base. Previously, the loyal fans would firmly defend Hua Jin. Through this incident, the fans' trust in Hua Jin was further strengthened, and a group of fans who weren't loyal enough were eliminated. At the same time, it created a tolerant and steady side of Hua Jin. As for those fans who left because of distrust, they would feel guilty towards their idol and become even more loyal to Hua Jin. One had to admit that Qin Zhou's methods were brilliant. After fiercely attacking this rumor, the other accusations would collapse on their own even without Huan Yu showing up. When a person told a lot of lies, even if they were half true and half false, then when that person's lies were ruthlessly attacked, the other words that were said, even if some of them were true, would no longer be believed. If one sentence was false, no matter how true the other words were, no one would believe it. Chapter 3898. Tang Yu's manager was furious. Where did these sneaky photos come from? How did Huan Yu get hold of these photos? Even Tang Yu himself didn't expect that he would be secretly photographed by the reporters when he brought his fans into the hotel. He thought that since he wasn't famous, the paparazzi wouldn't bother to wait for him, so he was fearless. In fact, this was Qin Zhou's doing. Ever since Hua Jin joined the cast, Qin Zhou had sent several reporters to pretend to be Hua Jin's assistant and makeup artist. In fact, they were reporters who secretly took photos of many of the artists in the cast. However, he had been holding it in his hands all this time and didn't expose it. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. Qin Zhou had always believed in the truth of protecting himself and never took the initiative to cause trouble. After all, it was easy for artists to survive in this industry. He was rarely willing to provoke others. But if others came to offend him, then he might not be polite. It was obvious that Tang Yu's team wanted to kill Hua Jin. So, he didn't have to be merciful. He had a lot of dirt on Tang Yu in his hands, and the more explosive ones were yet to come. Qin Zhou's principle was to either not say anything, or if he did, it would be a fatal blow. He wouldn't give Tang Yu's team any chance to fight back. And he did it. As soon as this news came out, Tang Yu's team was completely flustered. It could be said that they were caught off guard. Tang Yu's Weibo was very lively 2 days ago. When Tang Yu's team was smearing Hua Jin's reputation, Tang Yu posted a photo on Weibo with a short sentence, "Justice is in the hearts of the people." It seemed that there was no response, but in fact, it was a response. It was as if they were the weak ones and didn't dare to say anything because of Hua Jin's power and means. The fans were heartbroken for a while. But now, when the time came out, he really slept with his fans, got them pregnant, and was heartless. He drove his fans out of the hotel and didn't even want to pay for the abortion. His image as a scumbag was suddenly known to everyone. Qin Zhou didn't know how he found the person. A hotel cleaner stood up and said that she saw the girl before she jumped off the building. The girl came to the hotel to find out that she was pregnant and came to discuss with Tang Yu about what to do. She happened to pass by and saw this scene. She immediately hid, but she accidentally heard Tang Yu's disapproving tone. Obviously, he didn't believe that the girl was really pregnant. He thought that the girl was here to threaten and blackmail him. Therefore, he refused to let her in and coldly drove her away. The girl was extremely sad. She said that she had no home to return to. In order to chase after idols, she had been isolated from her family. Now that she was pregnant, she was at the end of her rope. However, Tang Yu clearly said that he was on the rise now. His image was very important. He would never allow her to be his stumbling block. The girl was so sad that she was utterly defeated. She stumbled and left. Some reporters questioned her and suspected that the cleaner had been bribed. However, the cleaner was very magnanimous. She even said that what she said was the truth and that she was willing to bear all the legal responsibilities. Therefore, with this sentence, Tang Yu's so-called lawyer's letter seemed weak and feeble. All the onlookers encouraged Tang Yu to sue the cleaner if what she said wasn't true, and if it was a smear or a rumor. Chapter 3899. This time, Tang Yu's face was beaten black and blue by Huan Yu's solid hammering one after another. Tang Yu's manager cursed Qin Zhou. This Qin Zhou was young, in his early 30s, but his methods were impressive. He had already laid out a backup plan. How could Tang Yu know that Qin Zhou had already sent people to watch him from the first day he joined the crew? Photos after photos were placed in front of him. He wanted to clear his name, but he couldn't. And Hua Jin's Weibo was personally managed by Qin Zhou. Of course, in this segment, Hua Jin had to act as a victim. For example, because of this incident, in the face of public opinion crisis, he endured the grievances and kept silent. Until the truth came out, the fans felt even more sorry for Hua Jin's grievances. Since there were facts and evidence to prove that the girl who jumped off the building had nothing to do with Hua Jin. Then, in the video that was released that day, Hua Jin was talking to the girl, and even showing concern. For a moment, Hua Jin's kind image was solidified. What a celebrity in the entertainment industry needed the most was positive energy. Just when Tang Yu was still thinking about this matter and racking his brains on how to get through this public relations crisis, Huan Yu once again released negative information about Tang Yu. On Weibo, an internet celebrity with the ID of Lily stood up as Tang Yu's ex-girlfriend and detailed several of Tang Yu's crimes. A long and voluminous post of a few thousand words tearfully accused Tang Yu of being a scumbag. Before Tang Yu debuted, he was an internet celebrity in his blog shop. If you've read the original Demon Eyes, you'll know that Tang Yu and I were the book models for Demon Eyes. He was the male lead and I was the female lead. We met during the Demon Eyes series of illustrations. At that time, he was still a university student, and I was already a famous cosplayer on the internet. At that time, he was very young and immature, but on the surface, he was a sunny and handsome guy. Just like that, we fell in love. Furthermore, when he was still in university, we opened an online clothing store together. We became models together and ran the store together. When he graduated from university, he told me that he wanted to be a celebrity, so he went for an interview with a record company. However, his voice wasn't very good, but the record company thought highly of him. They released a few demos, but they weren't very popular. After all, the entertainment industry was very cruel. If you didn't have the ability, it didn't matter how good-looking you were. So he said that he wanted to act. I've always supported his dream of becoming a star, so I've invested all the income of the online store into him, packaging and managing all the connections while maintaining the store's operations. Actually, I was in a lot of pain during that period. I feel that if he becomes a celebrity, we might not be able to be together in the future. So, I advised him to stop being a celebrity and just be an ordinary person. Get married, have children, and live a peaceful life. Perhaps that's true happiness. Chapter 3900. I secretly opened it once, and it turned out to be a middle-aged woman. Later, I found out that she was the wife of a senior executive of Sinhai Entertainment. 2 years ago, I was pregnant, and I told him about it. Actually, I didn't want to be pregnant, but I kept asking him to use contraceptive measures, but he refused. He said that it was uncomfortable to wear condoms, and that it wouldn't be easy to get pregnant. I didn't understand, so I believed him. He asked me to have an abortion, and he acted like he was in pain. But I accidentally checked the chat records, and he said that I was trying to kill him by getting pregnant. It was also at that time that I found out that he was having an affair with a lot of big shots in the entertainment industry. I didn't understand at that time. It wasn't until after we broke up that I found out that he was willing to accept the unspoken rules in order to become famous. His partner was the artistic director of Xianxia Entertainment. I met the director once, and he was a man in his 40s. I couldn't accept this fact. When we broke up, I chose to have an abortion. During the abortion, I suffered a massive hemorrhage. When I was taken out of the operating room, I was in a daze. I didn't even know that my uterus had been removed by the doctor. When I woke up, my mother was by my bedside, crying and apologizing to me. Because of the massive hemorrhage, in order to save my life, they had no choice but to remove my uterus. Since then, I couldn't have children. I permanently lost the right to be a mother. I hated him. For a long time after that, I fell into this pain. I was also troubled by depression for a long time. I didn't understand what was the meaning of living. I felt like my life was ruined by Tang Yu. And he successfully signed a contract with Xianxia Entertainment. Of course, he must have paid a big price for this. But what did I do wrong? My mistake was that when I was in love, I was too stupid. I always indulged him, spoiled him. Whatever he wanted, I tried my best to get it for him. When I was running the online store, he almost didn't help me. He owned half of the store's shares. At that time, he invested tens of thousands as a deposit. Other than that, the rest of the investment was from me. Even so, I was still willing to share the shares with him. Perhaps love makes people blind. But what I'm most unhappy about is that he didn't hurt me at all. I saw the girl jumping off the building. That nightmarish memory came back to me again. I stood up, not to ask for an explanation, but to tear off the mask of this so-called quality idol. In fact, Tang Yu isn't the perfect person you think he is. In addition to accusing Tang Yu of crimes, the ex-girlfriend also released one piece of information after another. The equity book, the prospectus, the photo with Tang Yu, the pregnancy diagnosis, the report of the hemorrhage during the abortion, and the information about the depression. Everything was available. His chat with Tang Yu was also published. For a moment, Tang Yu's image changed beyond recognition. This incident had attracted the attention of almost everyone, and it was unprecedentedly popular. Not because Tang Yu was a scumbag, but because of his extremely bad character. It was clearly her own doing, but she actually pushed all the blame onto Hua Jin. Chapter 3901. Hua Jin was innocent, but Tang Yu had splashed a basin of dirty water on him and made him take the blame. Tang Yu, on the other hand, was enjoying everything that didn't belong to him. Unforgivable. At one point, it aroused public anger among the netizens. Ban Tang Yu. Tang Yu, get out of the entertainment industry. Tang Yu doesn't deserve to be a star. In the future, I won't buy anything he endorses, I won't watch his TV series, and I won't pay attention to his shows. I'll boycott such a bad star. Tang Yu, go to hell. Even a fan posted a photo of many of Tang Yu's signed posters. All of them were torn up and thrown into a brazier to burn, declaring that they were no longer fans. However, Tang Yu's Weibo didn't disappear. Instead, he gained millions of fans because of his attention. However, millions of fans came to trample on him. On the top Weibo post, under the "Justice is in the people's hearts" post, the comment section had climbed to hundreds of thousands. The most popular comment was an insult from a netizen. Justice my ass. Smile. Justice was eaten by a dog and you're the dog. I logged on to Weibo to see if Tang Yu quit the entertainment industry today. Don't make a fool of yourself. I was blind to not believe in my own idol and mistakenly believed in a dog like you. You look like a decent person. Should I scold you now or go through the procedure? Is there a like for scolding Tang Yu? Weibo had fallen into a trap. The netizens' criticism of Tang Yu had reached an unprecedented level. During this time, Tang Yu was almost invisible and didn't dare to make any movements. Hua Jin knew that Tang Yu was in his room and didn't dare to take a step out. His 3 meals a day were sent to him by his assistant. Outside the hotel, they were surrounded by reporters. After this incident, everyone wanted to be the first to take pictures of Tang Yu's movements. Although Tang Yu was an unknown 18th-tier artist, he wasn't famous yet. But everyone was optimistic. If there was no accident, Hua Jin, as the protagonist of the TV series, would always be among the top. It wasn't a wishful thinking for Tang Yu to become popular overnight with this drama. Most importantly, Tang Yu actually used Hua Jin to get rid of the responsibility. This was undoubtedly setting fire to Hua Jin. As a result, Tang Yu's incident suddenly became a hot topic. The attention was there, but everyone asserted that Tang Yu's acting career had come to a premature end. Tang Yu now regretted his actions. If he hadn't pushed that girl into despair back then, if he hadn't discussed with her what to do next, even if it was an abortion, it might not have been so lethal if it had been exposed. Tang Yu wanted to be famous so badly that he wouldn't allow any negative news to exist. He wanted to be an artist, but he didn't have the self-control and restraint of an artist. He wanted to be famous, but he didn't follow the rules of the entertainment industry at all. Therefore, Tang Yu's fate was completely sealed. Tang Yu hid in his room and didn't dare to go out. And because of him, Hua Jin could only stay in the hotel, and Liang Yin couldn't go out either. As soon as they went out, there was a sea of media reporters. Dozens of them, big and small, densely surrounded the hotel entrance. As soon as they went out, they were heavily surrounded. It was too scary. Liang Yin had never seen such a scene before. It was simply deadly. Chapter 3902. Hence, Hua Jin ordered takeout for all 3 meals a day and brought them home. That was the result. They also had to be wary of the paparazzi who pretended to be delivery men. Some of the reporters even bribed the delivery man to put the questions they wanted to interview into the package in the form of a jump. Some reporters pretended to be delivery men and waited until the door opened to squeeze in for an interview. Some paparazzi were even scarier as they would secretly stuff a listening device into a pen. Fortunately, Hua Jin was attentive enough to notice the pen that had appeared out of nowhere. He took it apart and discovered that it was actually a recording device. Liang Yin was completely frightened. She felt like there were countless pairs of eyes staring at her. She was always on tenterhooks. She didn't expect that being a celebrity was such a painful thing. In addition to rushing for the schedule, she often couldn't rest well. On the surface, she looked bright and beautiful. But at such a critical moment, she had to fight against the paparazzi all the time. This was simply like the rhythm of a spy movie. These paparazzi must be excellent spies and secret agents if they were placed in the war-torn era decades ago. Hua Jin was already used to it. This kind of thing was common in the entertainment industry. He had long been used to it. Liang Yin couldn't sleep well these days. The crew also suspended the filming. The director's team and the executives were discussing the issue of Tang Yu's departure. On the internet, many netizens even threatened to boycott Tang Yu. If Tang Yu's role wasn't deleted or replaced, they would resolutely not watch it. Some people even held a vote in favor of Tang Yu's withdrawal from the cast. 90% of the netizens said that even if it was a TV series starring Hua Jin, as long as Tang Yu was still in it, even if it was just a scene, they would resolutely boycott it. The director's team and the investors suddenly panicked. What did this mean? This would be a big hit to the ratings. After this incident, even if they braced themselves and filmed the TV series, they didn't know if the TV stations and websites would buy it. Advertisers would probably shrink back as well. Generally speaking, the profit of a TV series mainly depended on the buyout price during the first broadcast and advertising placement. The cost of advertising placement depended on the cast and ratings. Generally speaking, a TV series starring an A-list actor was often packed together with advertising placement to the website. Profits, however, depended on it. If a single piece of rat poop spoiled a pot of porridge, then the gains would not make up for the losses. The film crew had to weigh the pros and cons. But here came a thorny problem. Tang Yu's backer, the executive director of Sinhai Entertainment Media, was also one of the investors of the show. If Tang Yu was replaced, it wasn't too late to reshoot. However, he was afraid that he would offend Sinhai. Withdrawing his investment was a small matter, but he still had to face the problem of breaching the contract. Tang Yu's personal image problem affected the crew's filming, which was considered a breach of contract. However, if the crew replaced Tang Yu without Sinhai's consent, it would be considered a breach of contract, and the penalty would be very high. As a result, after a meeting, not to mention the director's team, even Sinhai's investors directly requested to kick Tang Yu out. The higher-ups were furious. Sun Hai originally threw in a lot of capital to support Tang Yu, but in the end, this kind of thing happened. Chapter 3903. One was a ruined artist, the other was an investment worth hundreds of millions. Which one was more important? Sun Hai's higher-ups calculated in their hearts. No matter how they thought about it, they still couldn't bear to risk such a high price. They had to cut their losses in time. This was what a capitalist was like. The termination notice was sent all the way to Tang Yu's room. In addition to the verbal notice, there was also a termination document. Tang Yu could only bite the bullet and accept it. If he didn't buy it, then his image would collapse, affect the crew's reputation, and ruin Sun Hai's image. This penalty fee was definitely not to be underestimated. He couldn't afford it, so he could only let Sun Hai terminate his contract. Even so, the advertising income and signing fees that he had earned since his debut were going to go down the drain. This scandal was simply a disaster. Not to mention the loss of his reputation, his future was completely ruined. Tang Yu was unwilling to accept it. Why? Why did it go down like this? He subconsciously pushed this blame onto Hua Jin. That night, in the dead of the night, Liang Yin had just finished showering and was lying on the bed looking at her phone when the doorbell rang urgently. She was a little nervous, thinking that Hua Jin had something to do with her. She quickly rushed to open the door, but she didn't expect that it was Tang Yu standing at the door. Before Liang Yin could react, Tang Yu squeezed in through the crack in the door, locked the door behind him, turned around, grabbed her collar, and pressed her against the wall. It's you, isn't it? You're the one who wants to kill me. Tang Yu angrily accused and questioned, but it confused Liang Yin. These few days, she had been living in isolation. She didn't know what happened at all, nor did she know that Tang Yu was removed from the crew. Tang Yu, on the other hand, hated the idol to the bone. Everyone knew about Huan Yu's actions online these few days, and Hua Jin was an artist under Huan Yu. It must be Hua Jin's counterattack. Of course, he blamed all of this on Hua Jin. This matter was supposed to be settled. Tang Yu said angrily, "You and I are different. Even if you have such a scandal, even if you lose fans, there will still be countless fans supporting you. But what about me? I just debuted and don't have a strong foundation. If something like this happens, I will definitely die. Why do you want to harm me? Why do you want to implicate me?" Liang Yin listened for a long time and finally figured out why Tang Yu was looking for her. It was actually because of this matter. Liang Yin was also infuriated. Previously, her feelings for Tang Yu might be complicated to say. After all, Tang Yu was her idol. Although she knew about Tang Yu's past, her feelings for him were still complicated. She liked him, but also felt disappointed and lost. It was just that he did not expect Tang Yu to be so excessive and push all these things to Hua Jin. Liang Yin said angrily, "What does this have to do with flowers? What does this have to do with me? Is that child mine? Did I do that?" That day she was squatting in the corner of the hotel. Why did you ask her? If you didn't ask her, the media wouldn't have made an issue of this matter at all. Yes, I did it out of kindness. I cared about her. So, is my kindness my fault? Chapter 3904. She got pregnant because of you, but you shut her out. Is life so worthless to you? Until now, you haven't repented for your first love. You don't feel guilty at all, and you're blaming it all on me. Did I do this? If you're a man, you have to take responsibility for your own actions. What kind of man are you to push the blame onto someone else? Tang Yu said angrily, "How am I not a man? Who knows that the child in her stomach must be mine? Who can prove it? I only did it once with her. How can she get pregnant after just one time? If she could get pregnant after just one time, why didn't anyone else get pregnant but her?" Liang Yin was even angrier. "You're not just one scourge?" Scourge? How is that a scourge? It's them who want to do something with me. I'm just fulfilling their wishes. God knows how many people are jealous of them. Not everyone gets to have intimate contact with their idols. Tang Yu arrogantly thought that the fans were lucky to be in close contact with him. It was their blessing. He even thought it was a gift, a charity. Liang Yin was completely stunned. How could she know that Tang Yu actually saw all of this as a gift? In her anger, she subconsciously blurted out, "Who do you think you are? Do you think you're a god? Tang Yu, don't overestimate yourself. You're just an artist, a celebrity. The fans like you because you bring positive energy to them. But they didn't expect that what they saw was just an illusion. Your fans are so pitiful. To fall in love with an idol like you, they're really feeding their passion to the dogs." Tang Yu was so angry that he laughed. "Hua Jin, what right do you have to say such things? Who do you think you are? You're just a celebrity. To put it nicely, you're an idol. To put it bluntly, you're just an actor. Yes, you've never slept with a fan. You're pure, you're noble. But don't think I don't know that you were sold into the entertainment industry by your father. Before you debuted, you were just a waitress in a bar. How clean do you think you are? You're dirtier than me. I slept with a fan, you're an old man's mistress." Liang Yin's face suddenly turned serious, and she said in a deep voice, "Watch your mouth." "What? You're still unwilling to face what you've done?" Liang Yin was so angry that her eyes turned red. She slapped Tang Yu hard on the face. "Shameless." Tang Yu's face was slapped to the side. He turned back in disbelief and glared at him. "You're not even willing to admit what you've done. How dare you say I'm shameless? No matter what, Hua Jin will always be nobler than you." After a pause, Liang Yin continued, "No matter how bad it is, he won't play with his fans, and he won't treat his fans' sincerity like dirt. He wouldn't humiliate his fans like this. Who doesn't know you have a lot of fans? Who doesn't know that you have tens of times more fans than me? A few hundred times? Or even thousands of times? If you really want to play with them and sleep with them one by one, you won't be able to take care of them one by one." Seeing that Tang Yu's words were getting more and more outrageous, Liang Yin was so angry that her whole body trembled. Just then the doorbell rang. It was hurried, accompanied by occasional knocks on the door. Chapter 3905. Hua Jin, who was in the next room, heard the noise and thought that something had happened to Liang Yin. Just now, when she was arguing with Tang Yu, the vase on the table fell and made a noise. It didn't break, but it caused a lot of noise. Hua Jin heard it and rushed over. "Liang Yin? Liang Yin, are you there? What happened?" "Liang Yin, open the door, it's Hua Jin." Tang Yu was stunned. Liang Yin's body also froze. Tang Yu looked back at the door, and then looked back at Liang Yin, feeling incredulous. He recognized this voice. Wasn't it Hua Jin's assistant? Why did she call Hua Jin Liang Yin? This, Tang Yu didn't react. He wouldn't think about it in any other way. Liang Yin pushed him away and walked to the door. She tidied up her messy clothes and opened the door. Hua Jin rushed in all of a sudden. Before he could say anything, he saw Tang Yu standing to the side. His clothes were a little messy. Then he looked at Liang Yin's body. There were obvious traces of wrinkles on her collar. He wasn't stupid. He immediately guessed what Tang Yu was here for. "Bastard!" Hua Jin cursed and rushed over. He raised his leg and kicked Tang Yu in the stomach. Tang Yu groaned and sat on the ground. Hua Jin lunged over and grabbed him by the collar. Tang Yu didn't know how the girl in front of him, who looked gentle and weak, could have so much strength. He didn't expect it. On the side, Liang Yin finally came back to her senses. She walked over and held Hua Jin's hand. She said anxiously, "Hua Jin, don't be impulsive. Calm down, don't do anything." Hua Jin didn't look at her. Instead, he asked Tang Yu coldly, "What are you doing in her room?" "It's none of your business." Tang Yu shouted defiantly, "No matter how down and out I am, it's not up to a mere assistant like you to lecture me and question me." Bang! Without a second thought, Hua Jin punched him in the face. Fortunately, he found out in time and rushed over when he heard the commotion. If he was late, he didn't know what Tang Yu would do to Liang Yin. Even though he had summoned Liang Yin's body, his mentality as a man did not change. In his eyes, even though Liang Yin had a man's body, she was still a girl. He hated scum who bullied women the most. "Tang Yu, you're a bastard. You toyed with your fans, and now that the truth is out, no matter how pitiful you are just asking for trouble. Now, whether it's the director's team, the production crew, or even the top management of your company, everyone wants to get rid of you. How dare you come looking for trouble? What does that have to do with you? Tang Yu angrily pushed his hand away. It has nothing to do with you. This is a matter between me and Hua Jin. It's not up to you to interfere. However, you are really a loyal dog. How much do you think Hua Jin values you? You are just a small assistant, a dog. Your master may not see you as a human. This guy was clearly trying to drive a wedge between them. Now, he was at the end of his rope. Thinking about it, he didn't have a good time. Even if he brought some bad luck to Hua Jin, he would feel a little better and happier. Liang Yin was angry, but how could Hua Jin not hear the malice in Tang Yu's words? Stop trying to play tricks on me. Chapter 3906. Even though Hua Jin was in Liang Yin's body, it was as if he could swallow mountains and rivers. Even Tang Yu felt incredulous. He was actually scared by this thin and small woman in front of him who seemed to be unable to withstand a single blow. By the time he reacted, Hua Jin had already dragged him to the door. He opened the door and pointed outside. Now, I'll give you a chance to get out of here. If you don't want to leave, fine. I'll immediately get the media to come in and say that Tang Yu broke into Hua Jin's room at night to seek revenge. What do you think of this headline? After he mentioned it, Tang Yu realized that it was a dangerous moment. If he ran to the door and attracted the media reporters, then he wouldn't be able to leave even if he wanted to. Tang Yu gritted his teeth and scolded angrily, "You're ruthless." With that, he stood up, straightened his collar, and walked away. He knew that he had completely offended Hua Jin, so he didn't have to say anything nice anymore. On impulse, he wanted to find Hua Jin to reason with him and vent his anger. In the end, he saw Liang Yin, who was Hua Jin at that time, leisurely enjoying her leisure time in the room. When he thought about how he was so embarrassed to hide from the media, he felt that it was very unfair. Why? Why is it that Hua Jin has so much dirt on him? Why does it feel like he can still thrive while I can't make it in the industry anymore? Everyone made mistakes. Why did the fans and the public have zero tolerance for him and turn a blind eye to all of Hua Jin's scandals in the past? He felt that it was unfair. He didn't realize that the nature of his mistake was different from Hua Jin's. Liang Yin walked to Hua Jin's side and checked him up and down. Are you okay? Hua Jin shook his head. I'm fine. He didn't hurt you? You're underestimating me. Hua Jin stretched his muscles and put on a "I'm brother Hua" posture as he said arrogantly, "It's just a skinny Tang Yu. What can he do to me?" You're so skinny. I don't feel like I have any meat on my body. I'm all bones. Even if I punch him, it'll be light. After a pause, Hua Jin said worriedly, "What about you? How are you? Did he make things difficult for me?" Liang Yin said angrily, "What do you think? If he didn't come to make things difficult for me, why would he knock on my door?" When Hua Jin heard this, he couldn't help but flicked her forehead. Liang Yin held her forehead in pain and glared at him. "What? Will you open the door for anyone who knocks?" "I thought it's you? Why are you banging on the door so urgently? Can't you look through the peephole? What if it's a reporter?" "I thought something had happened. During this period of time, I've been on tenterhooks. I thought something had happened again. You're hopelessly stupid. You don't even have your guard up." Hua Jin walked to the sofa and sat down. He instructed, "Next time, make sure you see clearly who's standing at the door before you open the door. Being a celebrity is dangerous. Don't let an anti-fan sneak into the hotel and stand at the door. What if you don't see who it is and get splashed with sulfuric acid when you open the door?" Chapter 3907. That's because you know too little. Hua Jin continued, "Many anti-fans are very resourceful. Moreover, some of them are scumbags. They are all negative energy. Moreover, no one knows what ridiculous things they will do in the next second." Liang Yin was very curious when she heard this. "Looks like you've encountered anti-fans taking revenge on you before?" Of course. When Hua Jin mentioned it, he was actually a little proud. "After all, I've died once." "That's so exaggerated. What happened?" "I remember in the past, when I took part in a program, I met a fanatical fan backstage who claimed to be my loyal fan. She gave me a bouquet of flowers and a bottle of water. When I saw how enthusiastic she was, I didn't suspect anything and drank it in one gulp. When I drank it, I felt fine. But after a while, I felt that something was wrong. When Liang Yin heard this, she was so nervous that her heart clenched up. What happened? That person put superglue in the water. Superglue? Liang Yin's eyes widened. If that thing is mixed in the water, it's very deadly. Yeah. Hua Jin nodded and said, after that, I didn't think much of it. Because I would never have thought that someone would put superglue in a drink. When you drank it, didn't you feel that something was wrong? I just felt that the taste was a little off. There wasn't any sticky part of it like glue. It might have been diluted by something. Hua Jin continued, after that, I wanted to go back to the resting room. On the way back, I suddenly blacked out and fainted. After that, I don't know what happened. When I woke up, I was already in the emergency room. I was in a daze and was forced to vomit. Anyway, I was tortured until I was half dead before I managed to pull through. Hua Jin could no longer remember how painful it was in the resuscitation room back then. Everyone thought that he wouldn't be able to pull through. He didn't even realize how dangerous his situation was. He didn't even know how he ended up in the emergency room. At that time, his manager was standing outside the emergency room, panicking. The doctor told him that he had swallowed the superglue and that his life was in danger. The manager was scared half to death. The previous bottle of drink was sent to the police for identification. According to the extracted substance, it was found that it was mixed with a high concentration of superglue. At the same time, the anti-fan who pretended to be a fan was quickly arrested by the police. In the operating room, Hua Jin went through a lot of pain. Fortunately, he was rescued in time. In the end, it was announced that he was out of danger. Later on, he found out that the procedures that were carried out in the operating theater before this were gastric lavage and vomiting induction. He drank the drink mixed with glue. After an investigation, it turned out that the anti-fan was dissatisfied with Hua Jin's rising popularity. She was a fan of another male celebrity. It was all because Hua Jin had played a game with that male celebrity on a show. Because it was a sports game, Hua Jin's motor skills were quite good. It was a crushing victory. She was so angry that she came up with this plan. This incident caused a huge sensation. And that male celebrity couldn't withstand the pressure of public opinion and came forward to apologize. Chapter 3908. Fortunately, I'm in good physical condition, so I got through it. But, Hua Jin raised his eyebrows. Thanks to that fan, I had serious gastric problems for a long time. Even after recuperating for so long, my stomach is still very weak. I can't eat anything too stimulating. When Liang Yin heard this, she frowned. How could something like this happen? Before that, I wouldn't have thought about it. I also wouldn't have thought that there would be such a hateful person like an anti-fan. Hua Jin said as he stood up. He went to the bar and poured himself a glass of water. He took a sip and said, in the past, I used to cherish everything that my fans gave me. But since then, even if I had a good mentality, my assistant, my manager, and any fan's gifts would be separated from me in advance. If it's a drink, food, or snack, they would throw it away directly without looking at it. Toys and jewelry, after checking if there's no problem, would be donated to the appropriate charity in my name. Perhaps he was traumatized. After that, when other celebrities received drinks and snacks from their fans, they didn't dare to drink or eat them easily. Never underestimate a person's darkness. Hua Jin glanced at Liang Yin and couldn't help but lecture her. Do you know that Tang Yu is under a lot of pressure from public opinion now? It could be said that his acting career was most likely ruined. What if he resents you and wants to take revenge on you? Liang Yin didn't think much of it. Just take revenge. Hua Jin couldn't believe it. Why are you speaking so casually? Do you really think he won't dare to do it? He has nothing now. He lost his resources, he lost his future. You can say that he has nothing. What if he's desperate and has evil thoughts and kills you? That won't happen, right? Liang Yin was so angry that she laughed. He has to pay with his life for killing. If he dares to do anything to you, you have so many fans. Everyone's saliva will drown him. Although it's not your body, you can't be so careless. Hua Jin said angrily. You have to protect yourself, okay? Liang Yi nodded guiltily and mumbled, I know. In the future, I will pay attention and protect myself well. Only then did Hua Jin feel more at ease. He wasn't making a mountain out of a molehill. The entertainment industry was just a vanity fair. It was foul and there was no one there. Tang Yu had been eliminated from this circle. Who knew what he would do? Hua Jin was still worried, so he called Qin Zhou and asked him to send 2 bodyguards to protect Liang Yin. Qin Zhou agreed, saying that he would make arrangements immediately and that he could rest assured. Hua Jin hung up the phone and saw Liang Yin staring at a place in a daze. He asked suspiciously, What are you thinking about? Liang Yin regained her senses and smiled stiffly. Oh, it's nothing. I was just in a daze. Don't tell me you're feeling sorry for her? What's there to feel bad about? I feel sorry for your idol. After all, didn't you used to like Tang Yu a lot? Liang Yin sneered contemptuously. It's because the more I liked him, the more disappointed I was. The more I liked him, the more I thought I was ridiculous. How could I fall in love with such a scumbag and see him as a positive energy idol? Chapter 3909. When Liang Yin heard this, she didn't refute him. Instead, she said seriously, I used to think that you didn't have the ability and that you relied on your die-hard fans to support you. But now, I feel that you're very good. You're really a high-quality idol. Hua Jin was stunned. There was a mouthful of water in his mouth. He didn't know whether to spit it out or swallow it. It took him a long time to realize that Liang Yin was praising him. He didn't come back to his senses for a while. When he came back to his senses, he swallowed the water in his mouth with a gulp. He said exaggeratedly, You're actually praising me? He was just mocking himself. He didn't expect her to praise him so seriously. These are my heartfelt words. Liang Yin raised the corner of her lips in a mocking manner. Perhaps it's really hard for people to understand other people's situations. Not everyone can put themselves in their shoes. After I changed identities with you, only when I became a real celebrity did I understand how deep the waters of the entertainment industry are, how dirty people can be, and how difficult it is to be a celebrity. Seeing that Liang Yin looked serious, Hua Jin sighed. It's really not easy. It's very tiring. Yeah, I just feel like I'm tied up in very heavy chains. Sometimes, it really feels very difficult. Hua Jin said meaningfully, Heaven and earth are like a cage. No one is a body of shackles? When Liang Yin heard this, she didn't speak for a long time. After a long time, she smiled and said, Yeah, heaven and earth are like a cage. No one is not a body of heavy shackles. The two of them looked at each other. Liang Yin suddenly leaned over and said, Speaking of which, there's something that I'm more concerned about. Yeah. Tell me, do you like women or men? Luckily, Hua Jin didn't have any water in his mouth. Otherwise, he would have spat it out. Why are you asking this? Because I feel that there's a huge problem with your sexual orientation. What problem? When we went to the hot spring in the middle of the mountain, I felt that you and that man called Gong Jie seemed very ambiguous. It would have been better if Liang Yin hadn't mentioned it. At the mention of the name Gong Jie, Hua Jin's face instantly turned red. What do you mean by ambiguous? What can I have with him? Hua Jin said angrily, Don't talk nonsense. I'm a straight man. Steel bars? When Liang Yin heard this, she burst out laughing. I can't tell. Instead, I feel like you're a straight man who's like a rubber band. Hua Jin's face turned green and purple, purple and black, black and red, red and white. In the blink of an eye, there were thousands of changes. He stood up angrily and was about to leave. Liang Yin quickly stopped him. What are you doing? Why are you angry just like that? Hua Jin questioned her with an ashen face. Do you know that questioning a man's sexual orientation is the greatest insult to him? I was just joking. Is this kind of test a joke? Hua Jin was really angry. Liang Yin sized up his expression. Seeing that he was really angry, she couldn't understand. Normally, when people hear such things, they'd just laugh it off. At most, they'd clarify and wouldn't take it to heart. Why are you taking it so seriously? Liang Yin reminded him carefully. Why do I feel like you're trying to cover it up? Don't talk nonsense. Chapter 39:10. Liang Yin smiled and said calmly, I didn't say that you like men. Maybe the person you like is a man. Hua Jin was taken aback. He actually fell into a daze because of this sentence. That's right. Why do I feel uneasy when I'm facing Gong Jia? He even felt uneasy and wanted to avoid it. Could it be Hua Jin bit his knuckles? Could it be that he was really interested in Gong Jia subconsciously? No. This was Liang Yin's way of inducing him. Hua Jin jerked his head up and glanced at her. His gaze was like a torch. Liang Yin was stunned. What are you looking at? Hurry up and memorize the script. Liang Yin felt wronged. Memorize what script? Didn't the crew stop filming? Because of Tang Yu. It's not certain when they will resume filming. If they resume filming and you don't memorize your lines, it'll be too late even if you work all night. With that said, Hua Jin found the script and threw it in front of her. Fix the script first. Liang Yin said, Oh. She reluctantly picked up the script and looked at it silently. Hua Jin left the room. Liang Yin buried her face in the script until she watched him leave. Only then did she breathe a sigh of relief. Hua Jin returned to his room and lay on the bed. He was so frustrated that he tossed and turned, but he couldn't fall asleep. He covered his face with the blanket. No, could it be that he had been single for too long? So he started to think about it and even started to doubt his sexual orientation? Qinzhou? In the coffee shop, Hua Jin stirred his coffee with empty eyes. Qinzhou, who was sitting opposite him, raised his eyebrows and glanced at him. What's wrong? Do you have feelings for men? Qinzhou almost spat out the coffee in his mouth. He widened his eyes and snorted coldly. He said expressionlessly, My sexual orientation is normal. What's wrong? Did your sexual orientation change when you became a woman? Of course not. Hua Jin insisted, I like women. His repeated emphasis had aroused Qinzhou's suspicion. Why are you emphasizing it so much? You make it sound like you're brainwashing me. Some people are suspicious of my sexual orientation. Oh? Weren't there always people who were suspicious? The issue of Hua Jin's sexual orientation had always been a hot topic for the media. Many paparazzi suspected that Hua Jin was gay. Of course, this question had not been verified yet. What's the big deal about liking men? Qinzhou continued, In the industry, men like men and women like women. It's actually a common occurrence. There were also those who liked both men and women. That's the best for investors. In this circle, some investors were particularly playful. Not only did they have a lot of women, but they also had a lot of young men as their mistresses. In fact, a person's potential orientation was uncertain. Sometimes, when a man liked another man, it wasn't because he was gay. It was purely because the person he liked was a man. It won't be long before Tang Yu's dismissal from the crew is announced to the public. Qinzhou took a sip of his coffee. You should urge Liang Yin to consolidate the script. The crew will probably resume filming soon. Then, Hua Jin asked tentatively, Who will replace Tang Yu's role? Chapter 39:11. Just as Qinzhou said, not long after, the announcement of Tang Yu's removal from the cast was posted online. Weibo and all major media outlets reported on the incident. Soon, the person who replaced Tang Yu's role was posted on a poster. However, because he was a newcomer who had just debuted, he was selected by the sponsors. Although he was a newcomer, to be selected by the sponsors, he must have a lot of connections. However, he wasn't famous and didn't receive much attention. Soon, the incident came to an end with Tang Yu and Sun Hai terminating their contract. It seemed that Huan Yu and Sun Hai had reached an agreement. Sun Hai had promised Huan Yu a lot of benefits, so Huan Yu didn't pursue the matter. Without the media adding fuel to the fire, there were no more articles about it. The heat of the matter quickly died down. The crew resumed filming and Liang Yin became busy again. She complained a lot. In order to film, she was so busy every day. The weather was getting colder, she had to wear thin clothes, dance swords in the cold wind, and hang a wire. The first time she hung a wire, she was scared out of her wits. She was so scared that she almost lost half of her life. Hua Jin was also happy to be free. He didn't have to film or work. He had nothing to do in the hotel every day. So, at night, he would occasionally go to bars to drink a few glasses of wine. He hadn't been to bars for a long time. In the past, because he was busy with filming and was a public figure, he could go to such places unscrupulously under rare circumstances. So, he rarely visited. Now that he had the leisure time, he began to visit more diligently. That night, after Liang Yin finished filming, Hua Jin wanted to go to a bar. Liang Yin hadn't been to bars, so she insisted to go. Hua Jin disliked her. "You're a big star now. You can't just go to places like that. What if the paparazzi took a picture of you?" Liang Yin argued, "What's wrong with being a big star? Can't a big star go to a bar to drink? I'm not doing anything bad. I'm just drinking and enjoying the atmosphere of a bar. Can't I?" Hua Jin was speechless, so he could only brace himself and bring her along. When the two of them arrived at the bar, it was still early. Hua Jin wanted to find a booth, but Liang Yin wanted to watch the bartender mix drinks, so she insisted on sitting at the bar counter. Hua Jin couldn't argue with her, so he sat with her at the bar. Liang Yin looked at the bartending and couldn't say anything. Because she rarely came to bars, she always felt that the bar's environment was messy, but now she felt that it was okay. It was not as messy as she had imagined. Hua Jin, look, there's fire in that wine." Liang Yin pulled him and pointed at the goblet in the bartender's hand. The fire was burning on the surface of the goblet. "How do you drink this wine? Could it be that he drank it together with the fire?" Hua Jin said, "You have to wait for the fire to go out before you can drink it." "I see." Liang Yin stared at the glass of wine and muttered, "I want to drink." "No, don't drink it." Hua Jin said, "The alcohol content of this wine is so high. If you get drunk, how am I going to carry you back?" Liang Yin was a little unhappy, but because of Hua Jin's warning, she could only watch helplessly. Hua Jin looked at her pitiful face and said to the bartender, "Give me a glass of tomorrow." Tomorrow? Chapter 39:12. Is this the name of this drink? What does it mean? Tomorrow, as the name suggests, after drinking this glass of wine, you'll only wake up tomorrow, so it's called tomorrow. When Liang Yin heard this, she opened her mouth and was a little surprised. Is the alcohol content very high? Yes, it's mixed with vodka. The alcohol content is especially high. Most people would only need to drink 2 sips. Liang Yin was a little doubtful. Is it that exaggerated? She didn't dare to drink it, but she really wanted to try it. How much is this glass? 288 yuan per glass. Liang Yin was speechless again. So expensive? Is it expensive? It's still okay. That's true. You earn a few 100,000 per episode, so a glass of wine is indeed not expensive. Liang Yin said self-righteously. When she was filming for Hua Jin, many of her brain cells had died just from memorizing the lines. It was considered that she was at his beck and call, so it wasn't too much to drink a glass of wine from him. The bartender mixed the tomo and pushed it in front of Liang Yin. Liang Yin took out her cell phone and aimed it at the wine. After taking a few pictures, she kept her cell phone satisfactorily. After she kept her cell phone, the fire in the wine glass was extinguished. She tried to take a sip. However, the wine was fragrant and there was a hint of sweetness. It was quite tasty, but when she tasted it, she could clearly feel the vodka taste. It was a little strong, and when it slid down her throat, her stomach started to burn. She felt warm and her whole body started to heat up. It seems like it's really easy to get drunk. Liang Yin was a little wary as she pushed the wine glass in front of Hua Jin. She was afraid that if she drank this glass, she would get drunk again and get into trouble. Hua Jin couldn't help laughing. "You're not drinking anymore after just 1 sip? I'm afraid that I'll get drunk. This wine is quite nice. It's quite sweet." "Yes, it's because it's nice. There's no concept of drinking too much or too little, so it's easier to get drunk." As they spoke, Hua Jin suddenly felt a man sitting beside him. "Beauty, are you alone?" Hua Jin furrowed his brows and looked in the direction of the voice suspiciously, only to see a young man in a shirt sitting next to her. The man's eyes were bright, and it was obvious that he had some kind of ambition. There was no lack of such men in the bar. When he saw a woman he liked, he would go up and strike up a conversation with her. If the two of them hit it off, then everything would follow naturally. Hua Jin guessed that this man was probably here to hunt for beauties. He obviously saw him as prey, so he turned his face away and ignored him. Well, he seems to be quite hard to please. The man rubbed his chin and looked at him deeply. It had to be said that Liang Yin's appearance was also of the highest quality. Hua Jin's deliberate indifference had instead ignited the ambition in his heart. Let me ask you, are you alone? Hua Jin still ignored him. He must be drunk, so there was no need to stoop to his level. Liang Yin also looked at the man curiously, but she was stopped by Hua Jin. Don't look at him. She leaned close to him and asked nervously, Who is he? Do you know him? Do I look like I know him when you look at me? You don't, then don't talk. Liang Yin asked tentatively, Why don't we change seats and sit at the bar counter? Hua Jin glanced at her and said meaningfully, Do you know what it means for a woman to sit at the bar counter in this bar? I don't. Chapter 39:13. Liang Yin was a little annoyed. No wonder Hua Jin didn't seem too willing when she pulled him to sit at the bar. So there were such unspoken rules in bars too. Let's change seats? Okay. The man beside him saw that Hua Jin had been ignoring him from start to finish and finally got impatient. He suddenly stood up and leaned towards him. He grabbed his chin and forced him to turn around. I'm talking to you. Why are you ignoring me? Hua Jin struggled and wanted to push him away. He felt disgusted when he was touched by him. Liang Yin stood up and swung the man's hand away. She said angrily, What are you doing? Show some respect. The man had obviously drunk too much. After half a round of drinks, he had lost his patience. Seeing that Liang Yin dared to swat his hand away, he pushed Hua Jin away and pulled Liang Yin in front of him. What did you just say? Hua Jin was about to stop her, but Liang Yin was like a newborn calf that was not afraid of a tiger. She ignored the man's threatening gaze and scolded expressionlessly, I'm telling you to be more respectful. Don't touch my female companion. Bam! The man abruptly pushed her and swung his arm. Liang Yin instantly lost her center of gravity. Due to the inertia, she crashed into a bar chair at the side and fell harshly to the ground. She frowned in pain but did not make a sound. Anxiously, Hua Jin rushed over and tried to help her up in a fluster. The man walked over, held her hand, and pulled her to his side. What are you doing? Hua Jin struggled a little. Let go of me. The man pinched his chin and looked at him carefully. He was satisfied. She's quite pretty. After a pause, his contemptuous gaze fell on Liang Yin. Is she your girl? Hee. Then today your girl is mine. What? Without waiting for Hua Jin to question him, the man immediately grabbed his face, pressed his mouth down, and kissed him fiercely. The smell of alcohol in his mouth blew onto his face. Hua Jin's entire body stiffened. Feeling the man's kiss, he felt extremely disgusted, as if he had been bitten by a dog. He used all his strength to push him away and forcefully wiped away the man's remaining warmth on his mouth. Disgusting! Are you crazy? Hua Jin resisted the urge to slap her and said angrily, Don't touch me with your dirty hands. You have a bit of a temper. The man sneered, But I like it. Women are like wine, the stronger the better. Liang Yin couldn't stand it anymore, especially when she saw the man kissing Hua Jin forcefully. She felt disgusted and immediately got up from the ground. She stepped forward and grabbed Hua Jin's hand. Let's go. Don't talk nonsense with him. Hua Jin was still angry. However, he knew in his heart that he didn't know the man's identity. Now was not the time to confront him. There were too many people and they couldn't stay for long. If they attracted attention and were recognized, the loss would outweigh the gain. He didn't know if there were reporters in this bar. This bar was known as the entertainment industry's Hall of Fame. Some well-known directors, producers, and celebrities would patronize this bar because the owner of this bar was jointly opened by a few celebrities. It was a side business. Hence, most of the patrons were related to the entertainment industry. In this industry, it was better to suffer more grievances than to offend people. Chapter 39:14. Hua Jin was just about to pull Liang Yin away. Just as the two of them reached the entrance of the bar, They were stopped by a few men who appeared out of nowhere. Hua Jin glanced at them and subconsciously reached for the phone in his pocket. Immediately, a man strode forward and snatched the phone from his hand. Without even looking at it, he threw it on the ground and stomped on it a few times. "What? You want to call the police?" "Hee, let me tell you, our brother Hui is the least afraid of the police. Even the chief of the police station has to listen to his father's orders." The few men reeked of alcohol and must have drunk a lot. It would be fine if a drinker was drunk, but he was afraid that when he was half drunk, his mind was not clear and he was easily agitated. Hua Jin did not want to offend them, so he forced a smile. "Sorry. It's like this, he doesn't know any better and offended your big brother just now. I'm really sorry. How about this? I'll get her to apologize to all of you. It's getting late, we're planning to leave." Liang Yin also understood what Hua Jin meant. She did not want to blow things up, so she quickly smiled and said, "Sorry, I was too agitated just now and offended you." Behind him, the man walked over and walked in front of Hua Jin. He snorted, "Don't you think it's too late to admit your mistake now? However, it's not like there's no chance to make up for it. How about this? Tonight, if you come with me, I'll let your boyfriend go. How about it?" "Brother Hui, this man looks familiar. I think I've seen him on TV before. Could he be some big star? There have always been a lot of celebrities in this bar. Who wouldn't give my brother Hui some face?" "Exactly. I recognize him. Isn't this the big star Hua Jin?" It was not known who had sharp eyes and recognized him. Before Liang Yin went out, she had carefully disguised herself. However, her extremely recognizable facial features still allowed people to recognize who the person in front of them was. Hua Jin, a big star. This is incredible. This woman should be his assistant. The man said coldly, "Your assistant will accompany me for one night. As for the rest, we'll write it off. How about that?" Liang Yin said firmly, "No." Hua Jin pulled Liang Yin back and gave her a look. "You go back first." He frowned and mouthed, "Go back and look for Qin Zhou." Liang Yin immediately understood, but before she could react, she was pushed out of the door by Hua Jin. "Flower, you go back first." Hua Jin maintained his composure and smiled at her. "I'll be back later." As he spoke, he winked at Liang Yin, hinting for her to quickly find Qin Zhou to save the day. Liang Yin did not dare to delay. She quickly turned around and left. She had never encountered such a situation before, so she was so nervous that her whole body was trembling. She rushed to the intersection and hurriedly hailed a taxi. However, just as she got into the car, she realized that she did not have any money on her. The driver did not recognize her and asked, "Where are you going?" "To the film studio first." "Okay." The driver hit the meter and the car sped in the direction of the film studio. Liang Yin's hand trembled as she took out her phone. She had specially saved Qin Zhou's number in her phone. She hesitated for a few seconds and immediately dialed. "Do." Chapter 39:15. "Hello." Qin Zhou's sleepy voice came from the other end of the line. He had a lot of free time recently. After settling Hua Jin's matter, he had given himself a long holiday. Hence, he slept earlier than usual. "Qin Zhou." Liang Yin called out anxiously, "Qin Zhou, something bad has happened." Qin Zhou was in a daze. He couldn't tell if it was Hua Jin or Liang Yin who was calling him. He snorted and asked, "What's the matter?" "Hua Jin has been detained." "What's the matter?" Qin Zhou muttered unhappily, "What's the matter? Tell me directly." Liang Yin kept her composure and told him what had happened in a concise and comprehensive manner. Qin Zhou ruffled his hair in frustration, but his voice was calm. "Wait for me at the bar. I'll come over right away." "But I didn't bring any money with me," Liang Yin muttered weakly. The taxi driver heard this and raised his eyebrows. He was alarmed. "You didn't bring any money to take a taxi? Someone will pay for my ride." On the other end of the line, Qin Zhou heard this and said, "Nonsense. Take a taxi and come to my place first. Ming City Apartments. I'll wait for you downstairs." After Liang Yin gave him the address, the driver grumbled a few times before heading to the apartment in Ming City. When the car arrived at Ming City Apartments, Qin Zhou opened the door and got into the car. After getting into the car, Qin Zhou told the driver the address without hesitation. Sui Bar. What? Take a detour? The driver was gloomy. Are you kidding me? Qin Zhou narrowed his eyes and glared at him unhappily. I'll lodge a complaint if you continue to nag. The driver didn't say anything else. He made a U-turn and drove straight to the bar. Liang Yin sat beside him and glanced at him cautiously. She saw that Qin Zhou had changed into his usual attire. However, his hair was a little messy, perhaps because he had just gotten out of bed. There was a faint mint fragrance on his body. I don't know where it came from. Qin Zhou realized that Liang Yin was secretly sizing him up. He turned back to look at her and couldn't help but reach out to pinch her face. All of you are messing around. Instead of sleeping in the middle of the night and memorizing the script, you went to a bar to play. You really have a lot of free time. For some reason, Liang Yin was instinctively afraid of Qin Zhou. Even though Qin Zhou was young, Hua Jin's manager, and had a handsome face, Tang Ning never dared to look him in the eye. Perhaps it was because he had the aura of a dignified leader with an intimidating presence. It's boring to memorize a script. You can hang out in bars if you're bored? Qin Zhou snorted. The bar is such a messy place. It's fine if Hua Jin goes alone to mess around, but if you go with him, I'll have to clean up the mess for you. Liang Yin bit her lip guiltily. Who detained Hua Jin? Liang Yin hesitated for a long time, but she couldn't come up with a reason. She just said, I don't know either. I don't expect you to know either. Qin Zhou sighed helplessly and took out a cigarette from his cigarette box. He put it in his mouth and lit it up. The mint-flavored scent of the cigarette filled the car. The driver said, You can't smoke in the car. Qin Zhou said, Just drive. Don't be a busybody. The driver replied. Chapter 39:16. After the car arrived at the bar, Qin Zhou casually threw out $200 bills and got out of the car with Liang Yin by her collar. In that instant, Liang Yin felt as if she, who was 1.8 meters tall, was like a little bunny next to Qin Zhou. She said weakly, Don't carry me. I can walk on my own. I thought your legs had turned to jelly from the fright. My legs didn't turn to jelly. Then why were you shaking in the car just now? Liang Yin held it in for a long time. It was cold. Qin Zhou glanced at her, puzzled. Suddenly, he smiled, revealing his snow-white teeth. Liang Yin looked at him and asked curiously, Are you the only one here? If not, how many people do you need? They have a lot of people. Won't you get bullied if you're alone? Qin Zhou snorted softly. All right, since you're so timid, just wait for me at the entrance of the bar. Don't move. No, I want to go in with you. Liang Yin was also worried about Hua Jin. Seeing that she said so, Qin Zhou didn't say anything, which was a tacit agreement. The two of them walked into the bar one after the other. In the afternoon, the music was loud and boisterous. Qin Zhou walked through the unrestrained crowd to the beat of the music. He walked all the way to the bar counter and said to the bartender, Call your manager out. The bartender didn't even look at him. He thought that Qin Zhou was drunk and was here to pick a fight. Without looking up, he said, The manager isn't here. Qin Zhou didn't say anything. He picked up an empty bottle beside him and smashed it on the bar counter. The broken bottles scattered everywhere. The people around all stood up in shock and looked at Qin Zhou in horror. Not far away, the manager who was patrolling the bar heard the commotion and hurried over. At the same time, the bartender saw that Qin Zhou was openly smashing the bar and said angrily, What are you doing? Picking a fight. Do you know whose bar this is? What's going on? The manager hurried over. When he saw Qin Zhou, he recognized him immediately and greeted him politely. Brother Qin, why are you here? Qin Zhou's reputation in the entertainment industry was like thunder. If the manager couldn't even recognize Qin Zhou, he definitely wouldn't be able to get to this position. When the bartender saw the manager nodding and bowing to this man, he was stunned and guiltily put his hands behind his back. Qin Zhou glanced at the bartender and then at the manager. Am I seeing a ghost? Didn't you say that the manager isn't here? The manager glared at the bartender and scoffed, This is not a place for you to act rashly. Hurry up and get lost. Don't come to work tomorrow. Manager, cut the crap and scram. The bartender bit his lips in grievance and immediately left. The manager rubbed his palms together and smiled apologetically. Brother Qin, it's so late. Are you here for a drink? You haven't been here often recently. You must be busy, right? Don't talk nonsense with me. Qin Zhou said coldly, my artist's assistant was detained by the customers of your bar. Do you remember? I can't remember, Qin Zhou asked slowly. You have no recollection of it at all? Even though he didn't show it on his face, his voice seemed to carry some dissatisfaction. Chapter 39:17. You know, with our status, how can we afford to offend those young masters? Most of them just turn a blind eye to it. I'm not sure. In this bar, those young masters often came to hunt for women and sometimes caused trouble. As the manager, he did not dare to offend them. He knew about this, but because it was only a celebrity assistant who was detained, it was not a big deal. In this line of work, even an assistant could not escape the unspoken rules. But anyone who stepped into this line of work had a strong background, and others usually did not dare to touch them. Moreover, it was just an assistant. It was not worth it to ruin the relationship with those young masters for an assistant. Qin Zhou gradually lost his patience. When people cause trouble, you're afraid of hurting the relationship, so you turn a blind eye to it. So, as the manager, you don't care if I cause trouble? The manager said, Brother Qin, don't. Even if I ruin this place, your masters might not dare to pursue it. But your position as the manager is not stable. How about this? The manager could not stand the scare and quickly said with a smile, I'll go and find out for you the background of those young masters who detained your people. How about this? Okay. Don't worry, as long as it's your people, we'll protect them well. Even if we can't protect them, we'll call you immediately if anything happens. I don't have much time. Hurry. Okay, right away. The manager quickly sent someone. On the other hand, he immediately arranged for Qin Zhou and Liang Yin to be safely arranged in a private room and served them good wine and tea. After a while, someone rushed over and said that the people who took away Hua Jin were the young masters of Wuxian Films. Wuxian Films? Qin Zhou had heard of Wuxian Films. Although they were not famous, their background was not to be underestimated. The big boss of Wuxian Films had an extraordinary background and was not someone to be offended. I heard that the young directors of Wuxian Film and Television brought a few women upstairs. They seemed to have drunk quite a lot. They must have had too much to drink. Upstairs? Yes, the hotel upstairs. Qin Zhou ordered, help me find out their room number. Standing in the hotel elevator, Liang Yin rubbed her hands nervously, afraid that something might happen to Hua Jin. He was alone and weak. He didn't know how he would be bullied. Qin Zhou, on the other hand, appeared very calm. Liang Yin asked curiously, aren't you worried about Hua Jin? What's the use of worrying? He's an adult now. Since he offended someone, he should be taught a lesson. Liang Yin said weakly, actually, I offended someone this time. Hua Jin went with them to protect me. That's not a reason. Since you're already an adult, it's not your first time entering such a place. Liang Yin, on the other hand, felt extremely guilty. If she hadn't insisted on sitting at the bar counter, she wouldn't have attracted bees and butterflies and made things difficult for Hua Jin. I was wrong. Liang Yin looked apologetic. Qin Zhou snorted. Go back and write a 5,000-word self-criticism letter. 5,000 words. Liang Yin widened her eyes. So many words? Why? Do you have any thoughts? No thoughts. I'll go back and write. Ding! The elevator door opened. Chapter 39:18. Walking to the door, Qin Zhou was about to slam the door when he heard a thud, as if something heavy had been thrown on the door. Oh no! The thing that Qin Zhou was most worried about had happened. Beside him, Liang Yin saw that Qin Zhou's face had finally revealed an anxious expression. She was also worried that something had happened to Hua Jin. She patted the door worriedly and said, Hua Jin. Is Hua Jin here? Get out of the way. Qin Zhou pushed Liang Yin to the side. Taking half a step back, he gathered his strength and kicked the door open with a flying kick. He rushed in anxiously. As expected, when he saw the scene in front of him, he held his forehead in pain. Liang Yin couldn't see the situation in the room, but she saw that Qin Zhou's expression wasn't looking too good. When she finally saw the situation in the room, the corner of her lips twitched violently and her face darkened. Ouch, it hurts, someone come. One by one, the men were lying on the ground, crying out in pain as if they were going to die. Hua Jin stood in the middle of the crowd and glanced coldly at the room. Seeing that most of the people had been taken care of, he clapped his hands and said speechlessly, "You're still showing off in front of me with this little ability?" Qin Zhou cleared his throat and frowned as he said, "Hua Jin." Hua Jin turned around and was shocked to see that it was Qin Zhou. "Qin, boss?" Qin Zhou walked over and raised his hand to give him a knock on the head. "Didn't I tell you to restrain yourself? If you cripple them, you won't be able to pay for the lives of these young masters even if you sell yourself." Hua Jin trembled and whistled guiltily. Liang Yin saw this scene from the side and was a little dumbfounded. Hua Jin was actually so skilled? No wonder Hua Jin looked so relaxed at the bar and asked her to leave first. No wonder Qin Zhou was so calm when he heard about this. He didn't seem to be worried at all. He was very calm. No wonder Qin Zhou was so nervous when he heard the commotion in the room. It wasn't because he was worried that something bad had happened to Hua Jin. Instead, he was worried that Hua Jin would cripple the others. I can't tell. The seemingly weak Hua Jin actually had such a valiant side to him. Liang Yin looked around in a daze and mumbled, "Hua Jin, are you always so tough?" I've filmed historical dramas before, so I can be considered half a martial artist. These weaklings are more than enough. Hua Jin also felt a little guilty. He complained to Qin Zhou, don't you know that this group of beasts? They actually wanted to do something to me. How could I let them succeed? I struggled and resisted, but they wanted to use force. I had no choice but to take action." Qin Zhou rolled his eyes at him. "Didn't I tell you to keep your distance?" "Of course I did." Hua Jin retorted, I kept my distance. Don't worry, they definitely won't break their arms or legs, nor will they be injured. It's just some flesh wounds at most. There's nothing else." "Oh." Qin Zhou snorted coldly. "Damn it, I'm the one who has to clean up the mess for you." Hua Jin pretended to be pitiful and said, "What can you do? You can't just stand by and watch me get molested by them, right?" Liang Yin asked curiously, "How did they treat you just now?" "They wanted to do that to me." Hua Jin clenched his fists angrily. "They wanted to rape me." Chapter 39:19. When Liang Yin heard this, her anger rose. She ignored Qin Zhou's strange look and walked over to the men who were rolling around on the ground in pain. She gave them a few more kicks. Hua Jin rushed over to pull her back. Okay, I've already taught them a lesson. Don't add more." "These bastards. You actually want to use force on a girl who doesn't have the strength to truss a chicken." Liang Yin stomped on them angrily. Hua Jin and Qin Zhou watched silently from the side for a long time. Almost in unison they asked, "Are you really so weak?" On the way back to the hotel, Qin Zhou started to lay down 3 rules with Hua Jin. Number 1, you're not allowed to stay out at night. Okay. Number 2, you're not allowed to go to nightclubs, bars, pubs, dance halls and other public places for entertainment. Got it? Number 3, you're not allowed to do this again. If it happens again, I'll deduct your year-end bonus. Ugh. Hua Jin clung onto Qin Zhou's arm, feeling wronged. Don't boss Qin. I'm the victim here. I'm only doing this to protect myself. It's not a crime to defend oneself. Why don't you take a look at your status? It's the middle of the night and you're not resting in the hotel. Hua Jin, you're really something. Qin Zhou replied with and glared at her. Hua Jin gulped nervously and mumbled timidly, "It won't happen again." Liang Yin watched from the side and was quite frightened by Qin Zhou's aura. This man seemed to be very scary. Qin Zhou turned around slowly and took a look at Liang Yin. He smiled gently, but there was an obvious coldness in his eyes. You'll stay in the hotel obediently from now on. Don't run around and memorize the script, okay? Liang Yin trembled and nodded obediently. Qin Zhou smiled and raised his hand to rub her head gently as if he was petting an obedient baby. Good girl. Good girl, good girl. She didn't know why, but when he touched her head, his movements were especially gentle and tender. Liang Yin's face inexplicably became hot, and her heart beat rapidly. She actually fell into this gentle gesture. She bit her lips and secretly looked at Qin Zhou from time to time. She felt that Qin Zhou was a reliable man. Although he gave people the impression that he was a little black-bellied, with him around, she felt an endless sense of security. No matter how big the problem was, she wouldn't feel afraid. She always felt that he was there to shoulder it, and she wasn't afraid at all. Her maiden heart. Immersed, intoxicated, Hua Jin looked at Liang Yin, then at Qin Zhou. He furrowed his eyebrows, feeling. Liang Yin looked at Qin Zhou strangely. After returning to the hotel, Liang Yin returned to the sofa. She was still immersed in Qin Zhou's gentle gaze. The girl's heart was thumping. Hua Jin stood by the side with his arms crossed, looking at her coldly. Suddenly, he reminded her kindly, Qin Zhou has the same gentle gaze when he touches the puppy. Liang Yin reacted belatedly. She turned around and glanced at him. Are you talking to me? Aha. Hua Jin sat down opposite her. They were separated by a coffee table. He looked at her and said, Liang Yin, don't tell me you've taken a fancy to Qin Zhou? Who said I've taken a fancy to him? Chapter 39:20. That's nonsense. Hua Jin snorted. With Qin Zhou's looks, it's not difficult for him to enter the entertainment industry. When he was young, he was also a young hunk. Liang Yin caught this word and asked suspiciously, is he very old now? He should be in his 30s? 30s. Liang Yin was a little surprised. He looks about your age. That's because he's good at maintaining his looks. You don't know, but the skincare products at home are better than those of many female celebrities. In the past, when we were filming a show together, he would sit in front of the mirror every night before he went to bed. Practice? Aha, the eternal youth beauty technique. After bathing, he would apply it on his face. How can he not look young? Moreover, his facial features are younger. No matter how old he is, his face will still look the same. Liang Yin didn't quite understand what he was saying. She was not particular about maintaining her looks, so she was a little confused. Has he been in love before? Yes. Liang Yin was a little surprised. I thought he hasn't been in love before. Do you think he's an old virgin? How is that possible? For a man like him, there are plenty of women lining up for him. As long as he wants to, it's not an exaggeration to change a woman every day. Liang Yin was speechless again. She commented objectively, the rich circle is really messy. She had always thought that Qin Zhou was an old cadre who had never been in a relationship before. He was an ascetic man who had never fallen in love before. She did not expect that Qin Zhou had been in love before. But thinking about it, it made sense. After all, it was impossible for a man in his 30s not to have been in love before. But you're asking about him. Don't tell me you're really interested in him? Liang Yin denied flatly, don't think too much. I'm not thinking too much. Your face is too red. What do you mean? Liang Yin touched her face instinctively and glared at Hua Jin. Hua Jin crossed his arms calmly and gave her a meaningful look. Somehow, he felt that there was something fishy about this girl. Mr. Qin, I respect you as a person of character and have always given your artist's face. But look at what your employees have done. In the office, Qin Zhou silently looked at the young man sitting on the sofa with half of his face swollen and shouting at him. The person in front of him was the son of Wuxian Film and Television, Su Yue. Last night, he was beaten up by Hua Jin and even lost 2 of his teeth. It had to be said that Liang Yin's appearance was top-notch. In addition, Hua Jin had the habit of keeping a mistress at night. He always dragged Liang Yin to do skincare with him. Hua Jin's skincare products were all provided by advertisers. They were the best. Thus, in just a few days, Liang Yin's skin had been nourished to the point where it could be broken by blowing on it. Her skin had become supple and smooth. Even without makeup, she was still exceptionally beautiful. Su Yue had originally taken a liking to Liang Yin. But who would have thought that such a frail-looking person would be such a skilled fighter? In short, he was beaten up badly by Hua Jin. Yesterday, after Hua Jin and Liang Yin left with Qin Zhou, Su Yue and his buddies were sent to the hospital by the hotel's manager. Chapter 39:21. There were no serious injuries, but a few of his teeth had fallen out, and his lower jaw had loosened. Other than that, he had a slight concussion. The others' injuries were of varying severity. Only Su Yue's injuries were the most serious. The next day after Su Yue woke up, he rushed to Huan Yu to demand an explanation. Tisk. Qin Zhou leaned lazily against the back of his chair with his legs propped up on the desk. The cigarette between his fingers was halfway burnt. He opened his eyes coldly and laughed contemptuously. Young Master Su, if word of this gets out, I'm afraid it won't be good for your reputation. Su Yue's face darkened when he heard that. What do you mean? Qin Zhou said slowly, you and your friends want to take turns with one of my artiste assistants. Don't you think your table manners are a little too ugly? Young Master Su, are you so desperate for women that you're not picky? You even want to touch one of my employees? If word of this gets out, those who don't know will think that young Master Su is desperate for women. Su Yue's face turned red, then green. When he caught sight of Qin Zhou's contemptuous gaze, his face darkened. He said angrily, she's just an assistant. Why can't I touch her? Huan Yu is so big and there are so many artistes under it. I just want an assistant. In this industry, I've never seen someone so inconsiderate. Who am I? Why can't I touch her? Who does she think she is? Why doesn't she take a piss and take a good look at herself? How noble can she be? She's just an artiste assistant with a lowly status. She's not even worthy of my attention. Yes, she's just an assistant. Young Master Su, you're overestimating her. But the truth is, not only did young Master Su take a fancy to her, but your table manners are also extraordinarily ugly. After a pause, Qin Zhou said meaningfully, also, who said that the woman you touched was just an assistant in Huan Yu? I remember someone reminded me that even a cleaner in Huan Yu's headquarters could be related to the higher-ups. An assistant? Why, young Master Su, do you look down on assistants? But could it be that this woman is your pet, Xiao Qin? Qin Zhou smiled coldly. You can think of it that way for now. Anyway, you're not allowed to have any ideas about this woman in the future. Su Yue refused to admit it. Then what about yesterday's incident? Boss Qin, you have to give me an explanation? It doesn't matter if she's your woman or not. In short, that woman beat me and my brothers up so badly yesterday. Aren't you going to give me an explanation, President Qin? I'm more curious about one thing, Qin Zhou muttered with a puzzled expression. Why does young Master Su have so many people on his side? How can he be beaten up so easily by a girl? When I went in, people were lying on the ground. They were so young, but they couldn't even hold up against a girl. Could it be that they've been in the brothel for so long that their kidneys are weak? Boom! It had to be said that Qin Zhou was too two-faced. This seemingly unintentional sentence undoubtedly ignited a barrel of explosives. A man could be scolded as a bastard or a heartless and unscrupulous person, but the words kidney deficiency could not be scolded. Kidney deficiency. Didn't that imply that he couldn't do it? This was related to a man's dignity. Sure enough, Su Yue exploded at once. Chapter 39:22. Kidney deficiency? Qin Zhou, what do you mean by this? Are you trying to provoke me on purpose? Or is it that Huan Yu doesn't care about Wu Shan because Wu Shan has been giving Huan Yu face? Qin Zhou gradually lost his patience. He stood up abruptly, walked casually to Su Yue, and flicked the ash on him expressionlessly. First of all, Wu Shan Entertainment was never yours. The one who gave Huan Yu face was your father, not you. You're just relying on your father's power to make a fool of yourself. Second of all, even if your father stepped into Huan Yu, he would never dare to yell at me. No matter what Wu Shan's background is, he still has to give Huan Yu face. You touched my people and I didn't hold it against you. How dare you come to Huan Yu to make trouble for me? Qin Zhou's phoenix eyes narrowed as he grabbed Su Youwei's collar. You should see if you're worthy. Su Youwei's lips suddenly trembled. For the sake of his face, he wanted to refute a few words, but when he saw Qin Zhou's cold eyes, all of a sudden, no matter how angry he was, he suppressed his anger. This man, he had a terrifying aura about him. Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows and his voice suddenly softened. Didn't your father tell you who you can mess with and who you can't? For example, me, Huan Yu, and the Xinyu financial group behind Huan Yu? Seeing that Su Youwei was silent, Qin Zhou let go of him and said coldly, Young Master Su, please get lost. Huan Yu doesn't welcome an insensible guest like you. Su Youwei was furious. However, Qin Zhou had already spoken so harshly. Su Youwei was also very clear that Qin Zhou had the capital that he couldn't provoke. Su Youwei originally thought that if he came up to ask for an explanation, Qin Zhou would definitely push the assistant out to take responsibility or apologize. In short, it would be better for his reputation. As a man, especially a rich young master like him, what he cared about the most was his face. In the end, he didn't expect that Qin Zhou would be so protective of a lowly assistant. Not only did he lose face, but he was also ruthlessly criticized. Su Youwei was rebuffed, so he left in a huff. Qin Zhou knew that this matter would not end so simply and carelessly. No one knew what Su Youwei would do next. Haha. At noon, during the dinner party, Hua Jin heard from Qin Zhou that Su Youwei had left after being snubbed. He laughed so hard that he was out of breath. Ha! This Su Youwei is asking for trouble. Qin Zhou asked lightly, Are you done laughing? Hua Jin immediately stopped smiling. Pursing his lips, he chuckled and said, Let's eat. Let's eat. He was in a great mood. Liang Yin, who was sitting at the side, was a little worried. Do you think Su Youwei will cause trouble for Huan Yu again? Qin Zhou said disdainfully, First of all, he has to be able to afford it. At most, I'm worried that he'll come looking for trouble with me. Wuxian films and television wouldn't dare to offend Huan Yu. Only then did Liang Yin feel relieved. From time to time, she secretly sized up Qin Zhou. Originally, she was still worried about Su Youwei, worried that Su Youwei would come looking for trouble. Chapter 39-23. She hadn't expected Qin Zhou to remain silent and deal with the matter. She couldn't help but have a better impression of him. She felt that he was a very reliable man. Liang Yin lamented in her heart. When they returned to the hotel, Hua Jin turned around to find Liang Yin following him like a shadow. She blinked her eyes with a conflicted look on her face, as if she was contemplating something. Hua Jin was a little suspicious and asked, What are you thinking about? Look at your face. Why does it look so serious? Hua Jin, can I ask you a secret question? Okay, ask away. Hua Jin didn't wait for Liang Yin to speak and went straight to the point. You must want to ask about Qin Zhou, right? Liang Yin felt a little guilty and said unhappily, Can you read minds? Are you really interested in him? Liang Yin blushed when she heard this and said awkwardly, I just want to ask, what type of girl does Qin Zhou like? Not someone like you. Liang Yin was a little suspicious and said unwillingly, How do you know that it's not someone like me? Why, are you really interested in him? I didn't say that I was interested in him. Liang Yin pretended to be calm and said, I'm just curious. Why doesn't he have a girlfriend even though he's already in his 30s? Is he picky about his girlfriend? If you want to talk about pickiness. Anyway, he likes someone with a voluptuous figure, but not too voluptuous. For example, someone with a big chest, a perky but a thin waist, a big face, big eyes, but not too big. In short, it's about being well-proportioned. Most importantly, they have to be good-looking. I think you're out of the game just based on your figure. Liang Yin didn't admit defeat when she heard this. A figure can be trained. Don't look down on people. Hua Jin was certain this time. You want to pursue him? Liang Yin was still a little hesitant. I didn't say that I wanted to pursue him. Although it's easy for a woman to chase a man, Qin Zhou isn't easy to chase. What do you mean by that? He doesn't like to be passive, he likes to take the initiative. A strategist like him was used to taking the initiative in everything. He never liked to be passive. On the contrary, he doesn't like the feeling of being chased by women. You don't like being chased by women? In short, any woman he doesn't like is basically hopeless. As Hua Jin spoke, he patted Liang Yin's head sympathetically. Don't think about him anymore. It's impossible between you and him. Furthermore, he paused and emphasized, now you're using my body. You want to use my body to chase after men. Have you asked for my opinion? Didn't you also use my body to seduce men? Have you asked for my opinion? Liang Yin retorted, not to be outdone. What do you mean I used your body to seduce men? Hua Jin was so angry that his face turned green. Did I use your body to attract bees and butterflies? Why not? Who was the one who caused Su Youwei's incident yesterday? When Hua Jin heard this, he was filled with anger. If this girl hadn't insisted on sitting at the bar counter, would this have happened to him? Also, Gong Jie. Gong Jie? Hua Jin was a little confused. Chapter 39:24. Liang Yin got angry at the mention of this. She said angrily, don't think that I don't know that during those few days at the Mid-Mountain Hotel, you were sharing a bed with that man called Gong Jie? Did you ask for my opinion? How can that be called sharing a bed? Did you sleep on the same bed? Did you cover each other with a blanket? Although we shared a bed, each of us had a blanket. That's still called sharing a bed. But Hua Jin was at a loss for words. You used my body to share a bed, so why can't I use your body to flirt with other men? Hua Jin looked as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. If you use my body to flirt with other men, the prerequisite is that Qin Zhou must like men. If he doesn't like men, even if you strip naked and stand in front of him, he won't even look at you. He'll be indifferent the whole time. Liang Yin blushed as she glared at him. Suddenly, she smirked and asked meaningfully, who said that I'm going to flirt with Qin Zhou? Hua Jin was stunned for a moment. What else? Although Qin Zhou likes women and there's nothing you can do about it, there are also many men who like you. Hey Hua Jin, have you ever imagined that there would be a day where your body would be pressed down by another man? Hua Jin's eyes widened when he heard this. However, he pretended to be calm and said, you're just saying it. I don't think you'd dare to do it. Who says that I don't dare to do it? Liang Yin rubbed her chin and smiled. I feel that Gong Jie is quite interested in you. How about I go and flirt with him? Hua Jin suddenly became nervous. You dare. You'll see if I dare to. Anyway, my sexual orientation is very normal. That Gong Jie looks very handsome, so it's not that difficult to do it. Anyway, I won't lose out if I use your body to flirt with him. You. Hua Jin was furious for a moment, but he immediately calmed down. If you dare, why don't you show me your extraordinary courage? With that, he proudly turned his face away and walked into the room. When Liang Yin saw Hua Jin enter his room, she turned around and returned to her own room. For the next 2 days, neither of them spoke. Actually, neither of them had done anything. However, Hua Jin's teasing tone made Liang Yin feel indignant. Liang Yin threatened Hua Jin, but Hua Jin didn't care. 2 days later, Liang Yin received a call from Xianxia, saying that she was going back to the Mu family for dinner. She didn't mention it to Hua Jin and took a taxi back to Mujia. Coincidentally, Gong Jie was also there. When Liang Yin saw that Gong Jie was there, she suddenly thought of a perfect plan. When Gong Jie saw Liang Yin, he narrowed his eyes suspiciously. When he saw that Xianxia wasn't looking in his direction, he went closer to Liang Yin and asked tentatively, Liang Yin. Liang Yin pretended to be calm and turned around. She cleared her throat and said, I'm Hua Jin. Gong Jie asked, You're back? There was a look of surprise in his eyes. However, when he thought about it, it made sense. If it was that woman, she wouldn't have gone back to the Mu family alone. Wasn't she afraid that she would be exposed? When did you change your identity? Liang Yin casually made up a story. 3 days ago. Gong Jie didn't suspect anything when he heard it. Liang Yin twitched a few times before she finally mustered up her courage and said to Gong Jie, I have a secret that I want to tell you. Chapter 39:25. Liang Yin glanced at him and finally made up her mind. She drew a seductive smile and leaned closer to him. Her breath smelled like orchids. I think I've fallen in love with you. Gong Jie was speechless. Liang Yin tugged at the corner of his shirt and imitated Hua Jin's tone. She pretended to sound him out. Don't you have feelings for me? Gong Jie narrowed his eyes. So you have an abnormal sexual orientation? Is liking men called having an abnormal sexual orientation? Liang Yin said seriously, in the past, I couldn't accept the fact that I liked men. But now, I've thought it through. Actually, I don't like all men. It's just that the person I like is of the same gender as me. Gong Jie narrowed his almond-shaped eyes. This Hua Jin, could it be that he was a masochist? Did he like him? Did he like being abused by him? Or was he messing with him? Gong Jie was getting impatient. What kind of trick are you trying to pull? I'm not trying to pull any tricks. I really have feelings for you. As Liang Yin spoke, she slowly inched closer to him. Don't tell me you don't have feelings for me? Gong Jie grabbed her chin and said coldly, if you dare to make fun of me again, I won't let you off. Liang Yin wasn't afraid of his gaze at all. Instead, she squinted her eyes and smiled. She mustered her courage, tiptoed slightly and pecked his chin lightly. This time, Gong Jie was even more stunned. He scrutinized Liang Yin in disbelief. The confusion in his eyes deepened. Today, I kissed that man. At night, in the hotel room, Hua Jin was helping Liang Yin to mark up her script. He was flipping through the script and eating strawberries with relish when he suddenly said this. At first, Hua Jin didn't react. He blinked and asked, what do you mean? Gong Jie. Today, I went back to the Mu family for dinner and confessed to him. Cough, cough, cough. Hua Jin was stunned for a long time before he suddenly coughed violently. He stood up in shock and stared at her with wide eyes. He said in disbelief, confess. What is the meaning of this? Actually, it's not really a confession. Liang Yin pouted and explained, actually, I was just saying that I'm interested in him. I'm just kidding. Hearing that it was a joke, Hua Jin frowned. Thinking that Liang Yin wouldn't dare to mess around, he nervously sat back on the sofa. In the future, don't make such jokes, okay? With Gong Jie's personality, he will definitely take it seriously. Liang Yin pretended to be surprised. How did you know? Hua Jin? What was that supposed to mean? Liang Yin giggled. He really took it seriously and thought that you were interested in him. Hua Jin. Liang Yin looked at Hua Jin sitting on the sofa with a petrified look on his face. She was secretly amused. He deserved it. Who asked him to be so mean to her? Liang Yin had long realized that Hua Jin had an inexplicable fear of Gong Jie. However, this fear wasn't the traditional kind of fear. There was an inexplicable desire to escape. She also knew that Gong Jie was a little special to Hua Jin. Since he had always been mean to her, she didn't mind using a little trick to get back at him. Chapter 39:26. Since he had been speaking ill of her, she didn't mind using a little trick to get back at him. After more than 10 seconds, Hua Jin suddenly stood up, walked to the bar counter in the room, and started rummaging through the cabinets to look for something. Seeing him busy, Liang Yin asked curiously, what's wrong? Looking for something. What are you looking for? Looking for. Hua Jin turned around, and a fruit knife suddenly appeared in his hand. The chill almost blinded her eyes. Liang Yin's face was filled with horror. What are you doing? Since you've ruined my innocence and reputation, I'll fight it out with you. Hua Jin held the knife and walked towards Liang Yin. Liang Yin curled up into a ball and immediately said, Hey, I'm using your body now. Even if you want to die, you can't stab yourself. Hearing this, Hua Jin felt that it made sense. Hence, he rolled up his sleeves and gestured at his wrist, and raised the fruit knife high. Liang Yin panicked and immediately rushed up to grab his wrist, trembling in fear. Hey Hua Jin, are you crazy? I'll fight it out with you. No. This is my hand. Calm down, calm down. Liang Yin, what grudge do I have with you that you have to harm me like this? How am I harming you? I see that you two are so compatible, so I'm trying to matchmake you two. Do you think you can matchmake just anyone? Don't you know that humans and demons have different paths? We're not on the same path. Liang Yin was stunned and confused. What do you mean by humans and demons have different paths? Why don't I understand? I'm a human, he's a demon king, a great demon king, okay? Are you trying to kill me? I'm going to be killed by you. Anyway, if I'm killed, you won't have an easy time either. Now that we're on the same boat, aren't you happy to see me in trouble? Very happy. I think it's true love between you two. I'm doing this for your own good. For my own good, right? Hua Jin nodded and snorted coldly. Suddenly, he thought of something and his lips curled into an evil smile as he said sinisterly, "All right, since you said it's for my own good, then I appreciate your good intentions. But didn't you say that you like Qinzhou?" Hua Jin thought it through, or rather, thought of a bad idea. He laughed evilly. "Liang Yin, just you wait, I'll help you chase after Qinzhou." As he spoke, he stood up, snorted coldly and left. Liang Yin was stunned at first. She watched as Hua Jin left the room, but she didn't react for a long time. Ming's city condominium. Qinzhou had just finished his shower when he heard the doorbell ring. He walked to the door. When he opened it, he saw Hua Jin standing outside with a distressed look. Although he didn't say anything, his watery eyes were obviously saying, "Please take me in, please take me in." Qinzhou frowned and crossed his arms as he blocked the doorway. He had no intention of letting him in. But where did the stray dog come from? Hua Jin didn't have a tail. Otherwise, it would shake very hard. "Qinzhou," Hua Jin looked exhausted. "I'm feeling bitter. What's wrong now?" "Let me in first." "What for?" Chapter 39:27. However, Qinzhou had no sympathy for him and had no intention of taking him in. "Why did you come to stay with me when there's a hotel available?" "I don't want to stay in the same hotel as that woman. I get angry when I see her." "Oh, looks like the two of you are quarreling again." Qinzhou looked at his watch and said coldly, "There's not much time left. If you don't want to stay in the hotel booked by the production team, you can get another room. Don't come to my place." Hua Jin mumbled, "But I didn't bring any money with me when I came out." When Qinzhou heard this, he casually reached into his pocket from the clothes rack by the entryway cabinet. He pulled out a wallet and was about to give him some money when Qinzhou stopped him. Hua Jin immediately said, "It's okay. You don't have to go through so much trouble. I'll just stay at your place for one night." Qinzhou looked up and said in disgust, "I don't want to." Hua Jin complained, "Can you not give up treatment for your misophobia? What does that have to do with you? You're not friendly at all. As a friend, you can't be so cold." "Cold? Are we friends?" Hua Jin said, "If we're not friends, then what are we?" Qinzhou said seriously, "Boss, subordinate." Hua Jin looked hurt. "All right, look at how pitiful you are. Come in." Qinzhou made way for Hua Jin, who felt as if he had just been granted amnesty, to squeeze past him. When he entered the living room, he lay on the sofa and complained, "I don't want to serve that little ancestor. Do you know how hateful she is? She actually pretended to be me and confessed to Gong Jie." Qinzhou was holding a cup of coffee. When he heard this, he almost spilled the coffee in his hand. She's so daring? Gong Jie was a big devil. Not to mention Hua Jin, even Qinzhou didn't dare to be too presumptuous in front of him. Perhaps a newborn calf wasn't afraid of a tiger. Liang Yin had no idea what kind of background Gong Jie had, and she didn't know how frightening he was. Therefore, she had no respect for Gong Jie at all. Qinzhou could not help but imagine a kitten reaching out its little paws to scratch the tiger. In comparison, it was quite cute. "Qinzhou, let me ask you a serious question." Qinzhou quickly put the coffee cup aside. "Ask away." Do you like men or women?" When Qinzhou heard this, he did not get angry. Instead, he asked meaningfully, "What do you think?" "Judging from your temperament, you should like men." "Oh." Qinzhou snorted slowly and said in a threatening tone, "I'll give you one more chance. Answer me again." "Women." Qin Zhou glared at him unhappily. You already know the answer. I don't care about your personal life. How would I know if you like men or women? Hua Jin rested his chin on his hand and said, in the past, the media said that you and Gu Xingze were a couple. Qin Zhou reminded him coldly, in the past, there were rumors that you and Yun Shishir were in an underground relationship. Hua Jin said, it's fine if you say this in private. If you say this in front of brother-in-law Mu, he will definitely kill you and then me. Chapter 39:28. At the mention of Mu Yaja, Qin Zhou chuckled and shook his head. A married man can really change so quickly. In the past, Chairman Mu used to be a high-spirited young man, but after he got married he suddenly became an old cadre. He would never step out of the house after 7 o'clock in the evening. He sleeps early and wakes up early. I heard from Shishir 2 days ago that he has started to focus on his health. At his age, why would he need to maintain his health? He said that he wants to maintain his youthful appearance, live longer, and spend more time with his daughter. Hua Jin said in a daze, daughter slave? He's hopeless. He's the first daughter slave I've seen in history. Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows and said, however, I think a daughter is better than a son. The little princess is so cute that even I like her. I can't help but want to hug her. If you like her, you can have one yourself. Qin Zhou, how many times have you been in love? Hua Jin asked in a roundabout manner. I can't remember. You can't remember? Because I don't spend much time on relationships, so I can't even remember how many women I've had. It's hard for you to maintain this state. You're an adult after all. Don't you have any emotional needs? Hua Jin was a little suspicious. Also, don't you have any physiological needs? You talk a lot of nonsense today. Qin Zhou asked calmly, say it? I want to see what your purpose is this time. Why don't you tell me your purpose? Someone is interested in you. I'm here to sound her out. There are so many people who are interested in me. Who are you referring to? A man or a woman? Not a man, and not a woman. A transvestite? Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows suspiciously. That's really high class. I can't believe I'm attracted to transvestites now. Ahem. She was a woman, and now she's a man. I don't know when she'll become a woman again. What do you think of this type? Qin Zhou heard this and finally looked at Hua Jin. He narrowed his eyes and looked a little strange. Hua Jin looked at him expectantly. Are you referring to Liang Yin? As expected of Qin Zhou. You guessed it right away. Hua Jin didn't want to keep him in suspense. He laughed and said, what do you think? You want to pimp me? This? How is this pimping? Hua Jin said gloomily, I'm only in charge of passing on the message. She likes you and has been gossiping about you. So, I simply came here to test your intentions. If you are interested in her, it's not a bad idea for the two of you to try it out. Even if you want to try dating, at least wait until the two of you have swapped bodies. Hua Jin, he bawled loudly, his face full of resentment. If we have to wait for both of our bodies to change back, who knows how long that will take? Do you think I'll be able to wait until our bodies are swapped back in my lifetime? That's not necessarily true. Qin Zhou smiled and said, who knows, maybe you'll be swapped back in an instant. Who knows, maybe you'll be like this for the rest of your life. Hua Jin covered his face in despair. Just thinking about it, if he were to become a woman, he would have to go through menstruation for the rest of his life. He might even have to go through childbirth and menopause. Chapter 39:29. Qin Zhou seemed to have read his mind and said slowly, actually, a woman's menstrual cycle won't last forever. According to research, menstruation stops at a certain age. From then on, a woman will officially enter old age and won't be troubled by menstruation anymore. Hua Jin rolled his eyes. Can you read minds? Qin Zhou ignored him and walked past him to the bar. He poured himself 2 glasses of champagne, turned around, and said gloatingly, however, I heard that childbirth is very painful for women. Generally, pain is divided into 10 levels. The pain of childbirth is defined as one of the 10 levels. The roots of Hua Jin's teeth began to chatter. I don't want to have a child. When the time comes, it won't be up to you. It's said that only a woman who has given birth is considered complete. Be strong. Xianxia, you said that childbirth is the most painful for women. Then, is it more painful to have your testicles broken or to have a child? Huajin had turned into a curious child. Xianxia hesitated for a long time. I think it's more painful for a man to have his testicles broken. After all, if his testicles are broken, he might even lose his life. That makes sense. However, giving birth is a pain that women have to go through, but breaking their testicles isn't. Huajin was speechless. Anyway, don't be so pessimistic. Maybe tomorrow morning when you wake up, you'll find that you've changed back to your original self. Huajin's lips twitched. If it's really as easy as you say, then it'll be great. What if you change back? Nothing is absolute. Huajin said coldly, if I wake up tomorrow morning and find that I've really become myself, I'll be so happy that I'll run around naked. Xianxia smirked. Sure. If you run around naked, remember to take a picture and post it on Weibo. I've already shared it for you. Ha. Huajin stood up and walked to the bathroom. It's getting late. I'll take a shower and then go to bed. You really want to stay here? Xianxia reminded him kindly. This is a single apartment. There's only one bed. Are you sure you want to sleep with me? Why? Is there a problem? I don't like you. Besides, I don't have any women's clothes here. It's okay, I'll wear a bathrobe to sleep. With that, Huajin added, I'm not that pretentious. We're both men. Do you think I'm worried that you'll do something to me? With that, he went into the bathroom and closed the door. Xianxia drank the champagne in his hand and leaned lazily on the sofa. After Huajin left, Liang Yin could not reach him on the phone. She went next door and listened through the door. The ringtone came from inside the room. Could it be that he ran out alone and didn't bring his phone? This fellow in the middle of the night, could he be in any danger? Forget it. Who cares? Liang Yin did not care where he went. She went back to her room and memorized the script seriously. Then she went to bed. However, when he woke up the next day, he could clearly feel someone lying beside him. The reason why she felt that there was someone else was because when she turned over, her arm had clearly touched a slightly warm skin. She woke up in shock and opened her eyes. However, the scene in front of her almost made her heart stop. Chapter 39:30. There was a person lying beside her. A man. This man's facial features were not unfamiliar. QQQQQjo? She was so frightened that she stuttered. However, the moment her voice came out of her mouth, she realized that the voice she made was her original voice. She widened her eyes and covered her mouth. She was so frightened that she trembled and froze. What the F***CK? What happened to Fei Si? She changed back. Liang Yin had a horrified look on her face as she lightly patted her face. Pa 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 pa. The real touch and the crisp sound immediately pulled her back to reality. Liang Yin gently lifted up her lapel and peeked through her collar. Only then did she realize it didn't. What? Inside. Close. She was naked inside. Other than the bathrobe, there was nothing else to cover her. Liang Yin immediately covered the bathrobe tightly. Her mind started to wander. Could it be she and Huajin had already been swapped back, right? Then, after Huajin ran out last night, he came to Xianxia's house and used her body to sleep with Xianxia. When she thought of this possibility, Liang Yin's expression suddenly became unfathomable. It couldn't be. Huajin used her body to sleep with Xianxia. Slept with Xianxia. Liang Yin lifted her eyes again and looked at Xianxia's face. She saw that Xianxia's eyelids were slightly lowered as he slept. His soft eyelashes, thick and handsome features. Even though he was still asleep, he still looked very handsome and charming. But that was not the main point. The two of them slept like that for the whole night? Liang Yin couldn't tell if she slept with Xianxia or not. She also didn't know what happened between the two of them last night. She didn't have any experience, so she couldn't tell if there were any changes to the body if something happened between a man and a woman. Liang Yin carefully sat up and glanced down. There wasn't any blood stains on her body. Oh, her movements seemed to be too loud. and it immediately alarmed Qin Zhou, who was beside her. When Qin Zhou turned around, Liang Yin was so scared that she immediately lay down obediently. On the other side, Hua Jin also woke up. When he woke up, he found that he was in a hotel booked by the crew. He frowned, sat up, and looked around. Immediately, a bunch of question marks appeared. What's going on? How did he woke up here? Where's Qin Zhou? Wasn't he at Qin Zhou's apartment yesterday? After taking a shower, she put on Qin Zhou's bathrobe and shamelessly crawled into Qin Zhou's bed. Just like that, she fell asleep. Why was she here when she woke up? Sleepwalking? Hua Jin muttered to himself in confusion. Only after a while did he realize that it was him who had made the sound. His eyes widened to the maximum. Could he have changed back? Hua Jin immediately kicked the blanket away, lifted the bathrobe and looked down at his lower body. He had changed back. It was a pleasant surprise that he had regained something he had lost. Hua Jin was so emotional that tears streamed down his face. He hugged his body tightly and jumped off the bed. I've changed back. I've finally changed back. I thought that I would become a woman for the rest of my life. Qin Zhou was right. The moment he woke up, he had returned to his original body. Could he be the legendary prophet?